Now, would I steal things or, do any weird sex stuff if I were invisible? I would think not. Gotta tell you though, if I stumble into a lesbian vampire seduction in progress,
You're going to watch it?
Jack, you're a better man than me.
Dylan is canceled. Dylan is canceled for fictional peeping Tom behavior.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2024, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton Deshane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Hello and welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, the podcast where we try to resurrect Universal's failed cinematic universe of monster movies, one pitch at a time. I am your very visible host, Dalton Deshane.
And I am your very audible host, Dylan Roth.
And together we're blah, blah, blah. We're building out, rivaling the MCU with pitches, movie pitches,
Y'all probably know the drill. This is probably not an episode that's likely to be anybody's first episode of Are You
It should
Afraid
at least
of the
be your
Dark
second.
Universe?
But here's what I'm going to say. If you are jumping in, first of all, welcome. You are absolutely able to start with this episode. But episode 4 of this podcast is The Invisible Man,
Yes,
which is
which
the
is
movie we're making a sequel to right now.
It was our breakout episode, you could say.
And it's
the
only an
one
hour long.
Yes.
It's only an hour long.
Which this will not be.
It's a fan favorite. I would recommend starting there and then come back to this one, and you'll have a little bit better idea of what we do. But yes, today I will be pitching the second in what I am calling the Carmilla Trilogy.
Dun dun dun.
The Invisible Man's Revenge, and our only standalone sequel to that Invisible Man film.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about this pitch. I don't know how you're feeling.
I'm stoked. I mean, for one thing, I've been able to, I've sensed how excited you were about it, and you've updated me now and then. I'm also, I don't know much. We have had to confer a little bit because our stories have had some overlap of late.
Yes, I did something that may have triggered some big consequences for our Dark Legion family, and we needed to make sure we weren't stepping on each other's toes.
Yes, indeed. And once again, if you're not caught up, if you are invested in this universe, but for some reason are skipping around and you have not yet listened to Phantom of the Opera, Love Never Dies, you're going to want to go back and listen to that one.
Now we're giving people so much homework. But
yes.
Also, Love Never Dies.
We're a cinematic universe. We're all about homework.
but if that sounds intimidating, just stick with us. But yes, spoiler alert, Carol Laemmle is dead. And it was a musical. And God, am I glad I did not have to write any fucking songs for this. Spoiler alert, I did not write any songs for this one. I definitely took the opportunity to not give myself extra
I think
work.
you've paid your dues for this phase, Dalton.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the thing is that people don't know exactly what to expect, myself included, from this particular thing, because we're in this Carmilla trilogy, right?
Yes.
Where this is a follow-up to what was very fun, but also a very dark chapter, sort of the inciting incident, what it feels like, of what's going forward in our story.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're at a dark point right now. And I know that when you were initially thinking about doing a sequel to The Invisible Man, you thought about doing something that took him to a very dark place.
Mm-hmm.
But then we've had to kind of go back and forth because I ended up kind of lightening him up a little bit during phase 2, and he was in a generally better place at the end when we last saw him.
Mm-hmm. True.
So, but now all bets are off. So we could go really heavy, or we could go, sort of horror comedy route once again.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't mind my diving into the fan predictions.
Yes. The one other thing I'll say is that this is also the first part of the Carmilla trilogy that people know is part of the Carmilla trilogy.
Right.
Because the first one, Love Never Dies, we didn't know that it was going to continue until the very end.
Yeah.
Carmilla doesn't get revealed until the third act.
Yes.
It seems like a standalone movie, which I hope it still kind of is. I tried to give each one of these a definitive ending.
Right.
So
we want them all to feel like their own films. Yeah.
Yes. But for most of that, it seemed like it was just going to be a self-contained film. This one, we're going into it with the expectation that it will continue the story.
Okay.
And
now you saying that now has the expectation where I feel like we are going to, like you said, you're going to give it an ending, but it's going to have another sort of cliffhanger to it, probably.
Shrug.
That's going to lead probably into your Van Helsing, which is also mysterious to me.
Coy shrug.
Yes.
I'm giving a coy shrug.
Well, we have some sort of vague predictions and some very specific predictions from our fans all across social media.
Hell yeah.
One of the very common ones is that there will be another invisible character in the film.
Interesting.
There's some question and some debate as to whether the invisible man who is taking revenge is indeed Jack Griffin, or if there will be a different invisible man taking revenge. Someone say there may be an invisible man who is getting revenge on Jack. And so it is an invisible man's revenge squared, right?
People are used to us really pulling the rug out from under them. So everyone's metagaming us now.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to twist this title on us?
So that was a suggestion, that was a prediction made both by Tall Idiot and Andy from the Discord. At W Supreme on Twitter expects an extended knockdown, drag-out fight between two invisible opponents.
That would be fun.
Vex Vixen on Discord also predicts is that there was another invisible man, but that it will be sort of a red herring, that everyone will think that Jack has gone off the edge and is starting to do crazy shit, but there's actually another invisible man or woman who is responsible. So that's an interesting idea. I like that a lot. Sort of
the inverse of your Phantom of the Opera thing, where we thought it was a phantom and then it was Jack.
Yes.
Yeah. Or I guess the beginning of Love Never Dies too.
Yes. The name Will Ferrell came up a couple of times.
That's true, yeah.
Nightmare Matt on the Discord suggests that Will Ferrell could play in the other Invisible Man. Once again, this is just an idea that took off. And a man called Smallwood on Instagram also suspects that Will Ferrell will play the villain.
I mentioned this on Discord as a teaser, but I did say that I'm only adding one new actor to the Dark Universe in this script. Although, since I said that, I did add a second. So
okay.
I was lying.
Big liar.
I didn't know I was lying, but I was lying.
People have been speculating whether we'll get more of a callback to Jack's history as a scientist, whether we might return to Jack's old workplace. And
he was
maybe
a food chemist.
Yeah, maybe executive producer Dick Wolf from the Discord suggests that maybe a coworker has found a way to replicate the invisibility formula, and that's how we get another invisible man. And you haven't even confirmed that there is another invisible person in the film. So
I have not.
Bot B on the Discord thinks that the revenge will be something silly, and this will be once again a slapstick comedy that harkens back to some of the older Universal monster movies, or even a silent comedy, although I doubt that, because what am I going to do?
I would love to do a silent comedy as like a formal experiment, but I don't know if it would work on a podcast.
Just an audiobook, which that's fine. Roxanne says that Jack will attempt to get his revenge, but the key word will be attempt, because he will try to do it alone, and it will be he'll bumble through it, and the lesson will be that he can't get the revenge on his own. I imagine setting up future stories.
Jack bumbling?
No.
I can't imagine.
Hexy Lexi has a prediction that I really like, which is that the Invisible Man's revenge is not like a plot to kill someone, but a Man in the Iron Mask style planning of someone's utter downfall. And I like that because it reminds me of the 2020 Invisible Man, where the big fear is that there's something that's following you that's ruining your life, and no one believes it's there. And it's a very, very scary premise and a really creepy thing for Jack to get invested in.
Very Count of Monte Cristo as well.
Yes. This is not the only person who referenced that sort of thing. Togue on the Discord thinks that there could be a 2020 Invisible Man prediction. Somebody, I don't even know if I wrote this one, if I copied this one down. Someone went into an involved prediction about how the actual suit from the 2020 Invisible Man film would be involved.
That would be cool. Someone trying to replicate the Dark Legion thing and
goes about it in a completely different way.
They take about it in a different way. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate as to whether we're going to be dealing with something light or heavy. BM Squared thinks this is a full-on horror film with no comedy and no lightheartedness. Jack goes full John Wick on people's asses and in a way that would make Michael fucking Myers blush.
I'm not going to reveal anything about the tone yet, but we will, although my director might kind of spoil it, but I'll talk about that more maybe after Act 1.
Instant Insanity Productions on Instagram also says we're going to see Jack go down the deep end in a way we haven't seen before and to get to a Hollow Man level of dark. That's very dark.
Yes.
Superhero Bricks on Instagram wants to see the various traumas that Jack has gone through push him to the edge of sanity.
Wow. Do people fucking hate Jack? What's going on here?
I think they love Jack, and they want to see him challenged.
Yes.
On Blue Sky, Alex Uniponis, Alex Green.
Yes.
Look, I know the intensity is different, but I still think there's going to be a callback to the floating dick and balls. Maybe this time it's covered in blood or something.
Yeah.
That would be
to indicate the darker turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
people are speculating as to what other Dark Universe characters might show up in this episode. Might we have a return of Regina Hall's character?
Yes, she was in the first one, hasn't been seen since. People also love shipping Nick and Jack. That has been a new thing on the Discord.
I don't feel like, I know that I haven't really put anything in there deliberately to tease that.
I think it's just because they're bros. It's just because they're bros, and I get that. There has never been any sexual tension textually between them, but I am, of course, a fan of people writing it in. By the way, I do have to point out that since Love Never Dies, at least, fanfic has blown up on the Discord.
We had to give it its own channel on the Discord now.
If you are someone who likes fanfic, either reading or writing it, you're going to love the Discord. We had to give it its own channel because people have been making movie scripts, entire like alternate universe stories.
They've been matching. I think there's like a coffee shop or like apartment building fic where they're all just hanging out in there. I don't spend a lot of time in there because it's happening too fast. And also that's a fanfic thing. It really should belong to you guys. It's not necessarily my place to be there.
I'm looking forward to catching up on it a little bit once we finish the phase, just because I don't want to be too influenced. But yeah, people are going hog wild with the fan fiction. I love it. And yes, some ships, including Nick and Jack. So definitely saw some hopes for that on the Discord.
And everybody wants more Walton Goggins. We did kill off his character in House of Dracula, but we
kill off all of our favorite actors.
We do. A couple very specific guesses. Miss Drake wants to see an invisible sex scene. Violet, once again, says Jack is battling a lawsuit where Broadway, sans dear Evan Hansen, is trying to hold him accountable for the ghost crimes he committed during Phantom of the Phantom. And we get another Leah Michelle cameo. It is indeed canon that she is illiterate in the Dark Universe.
It is, yes.
Roxanne says the full title of the film is actually The Invisible Man's Revenge on the Audience. And it's a 75-minute film of Jack doing Tim Heidecker-esque stand-up. Beyond that, people have their usual ideas about what Rat Hands could be doing in this film.
Of course.
But we're not going to go through all that because I think we can safely say Rat Hands will not be in the film.
I will say that the predictions for this one, there were, of course, a lot that were incorrect. But this is the most people have actually been dead on about a few things. But
you won't say which.
No, the things they were most dead on about did not happen when we asked for expectations. There are things that have happened over the last couple months, people just throwing out like kind of joke suggestions. And no kidding, twice I came up with an idea. I was like, oh my God, that's a killer idea. No one's ever going to see it coming. And then the next day, someone brought it up in the Discord as a joke. And look, people are going to accuse me of plagiarism. I got receipts because usually when I have an idea I'm really excited about, I text it to Sarah or Ella. So I have text receipts and showing that I did come up with these ahead of time. But literally, I came up with the idea one day later. Someone's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? And I'm like, fuck, they came up with I didn't write down who it was, but you'll know.
Yeah, feel free to take credit, but please take the appropriate amount of credit. Dalton did not steal your idea. I trust that they're telling the truth here.
Yes, I'll show the receipts. But let's start getting into it. Of course, we got to talk about the director, which this one I'm kind of taking a chance on. She only has one movie under her belt, but I've decided to go with Zelda Williams.
I like Zelda Williams. I like Lisa Frankenstein, which is her one feature.
Lisa Frankenstein was not a perfect film, but I loved the tone of it. And she has such a great visual style for the macabre, the lighting, it's very like a sort of giallo 70s horror lighting, very dynamic. She does not fuck with realism lighting at all. It's like, it doesn't matter where the light's coming from. It looks cool as fuck.
Right.
Let's do it, which I love.
The movie feel like a little bit out of time.
Yes.
Like it really lent the period piece of it like a sort of, like not quite a holdovers level of authenticity, but it felt a little bit like that where, the movie's set in 1989 and clearly Heathers and Edward Scissorhands are sort of the two movies she's mashing up together here. And those are two movies that look very different, but they both look very of their time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Cool choice.
Yeah.
And also, how about, we're getting back to, we had a couple of big time vets brought in recently. Let's have some more young talent.
That was the other thing I was thinking is like, let's go back to more emerging directors. And, maybe this tells you a little bit about the tone direction, but Lisa Frankenstein is also very funny and it also cares about its characters and it's heartfelt in a good way. And so I thought she would be a good match.
Taffy is the character find of the year.
Taffy rocks.
I love Taffy.
Taffy is really the main character of that movie.
Yes.
She's the hero for sure.
Well, yes.
Because no one else is.
I've written about this in my review at Observer.
Good.
Go check it out.
All right, are we ready?
I am ready to go. Let's rock.
Submitted for the approval of the fans of Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, this is Dalton Deshane's The Invisible Man's Revenge. Prologue. The Dark Universe theme ends, and the logo begins to spin like it was a symbol on a slot machine. That's because it is a symbol on a slot machine, and when it finally slows, it lands on a neon number 6. We zoom out to reveal the full machine, called Hell's High Roller, which has landed on all 6s. An old woman erupts with joy as the jackpot alarm sounds and coins spill out of the devil's mouth. We're in a very familiar casino. It is, in fact, the casino that Jack robbed in The Invisible Man 2022. We cut to the grand opening ceremony for a new restaurant inside the casino called Naked Lunch by The Invisible Chef, whose logo is a disembodied apron and a floating tray with a juicy steak on top. An instrumental arrangement of Mr. Cellophane blares from the speakers. Casino chairman Robert Campbell, played by Branscombe Richmond, stands at the podium giving a speech to a very packed crowd. Now, of course, the founder of this establishment needs no introduction. Not only did he save the world from actual demons, but he saved my very life and the casino you're standing in from a vampire invasion just a few years ago. We're so honored that he chose our establishment to be the home of the very first full-service Invisible Chef restaurant. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please welcome the Invisible Chef himself, Dr. Jack Griffin. The crowd erupts in applause as the Invisible Man, dressed just like the logo in an apron and carrying a silver tray, steps up to the podium. He speaks, of course, with the voice of John C. Reilly.
Well, gee, everyone. Well, that's way too kind of you. I can't tell you how much it means to me to get a reception like this in my own hometown. Our unofficial motto is Keep Portland Weird, and I hope I've done a satisfactory job of carrying that banner.
Chuckles from the crowd.
Welcome, one and all, to Naked Lunch, the first of many steps that my brand, The Invisible Chef, will be taking into the restaurant world. And of course, just like the Invisible Chef frozen dinners that you all know and love, you can trust that I've followed the same credo in crafting the dishes here.
Everyone recites this next part along with him.
Flavor you can see, calories that disappear. Thanks, everyone, and bon appetit.
Jack hands the tray to an assistant and heads off to take pictures with the VIPs. As he squeezes through the crowd, someone collides with him and spills wine all over his apron. He gives an "aw, dang it," and pulls the apron over his head to hand to another assistant. Before they can hand him a replacement, he's pulled into taking pictures with the chairman and some politicians. We look through the camera viewfinder, showing that Jack is completely invisible in these photos. The politicians are just taking photos with each other. After a few pictures, his phone rings, and he excuses himself from the chaos. His phone floats up to his ear, and he answers.
Hello? Oh, hey, Keith. How's the opera? What time is it there?
Jack goes quiet. The sound of the crowd is slowly muffled. We hear Keith's faint voice, unintelligible.
She what?
Fade to black. Title card. The Invisible Man's Revenge. Act 1. We fade in on a rainy evening in Portland. A church. Inside, a few dozen people mill about, dressed in black, murmuring to each other. At one end of the room is an open casket, surrounded by flowers. Among the mourners, we see the Portland Poltergeist, as well as most of the members of our Dark Legion. Notably missing is Dr. Jennifer Halsey. Jack walks through the crowd, visible in a black suit. Nick Morton notices him and breaks away from a conversation to embrace him tightly.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Jack. There's been too many of these recently. I'm sorry. I know you were close.
How did it happen?
Nick shakes his head. Nobody knows for sure. She and Jenny were attending an opera festival in Austria. On opening night, she fell from a platform above the stage. No witnesses except Jenny, and she hasn't been seen since.
But the body's intact, isn't it? Can't you just, mummy her back to life? Like you've done with me?
Nick looks around and pulls Jack aside, away from the crowd. He speaks more quietly now. I tried. First thing I did when I heard was get on a flight and head straight to the morgue. Whatever killed her, it wasn't the fall. Something happened to her that even my magic can't undo. Jack's shoulders fall. That was his last hope. They found a body in the water. Well, two halves of a body. Belongs to a serial killer named the Raven. Jack flashes back to the last conversation he had with Carol. This time we see it from Jack's side. He looks up the Raven, gives her the info, and tries to apologize, but she says, "Save it, Jack! I don't have time right now." She hangs up on him. He puts the phone down slowly, hurt. Back to the present. Nick says, "People are saying it must have been him, but..."
You don't believe it?
The Raven's not magic. At least, not as far as anyone knows. Carol didn't die a normal death. She died a supernatural one. And the only person who really knows what happened is Jenny. Jack absorbs this.
We have to get her back, Nick.
I know, buddy. We're going to do whatever we can. He pulls Jack in for another hug. I love you, Jack.
I love you too.
The crowd begins to disperse. Looks like we're off to the cemetery. You need a ride?
Give me a second. I haven't seen her yet.
Nick nods and leaves. Jack makes his way upstream to the coffin, where one person still stands. It's Hunter Marin, the 17-year-old keeper of the Black Lagoon. Carol's body is serene and beautiful. Hunter looks down at her with tears in their eyes.
Hey, kiddo.
Hey, Tio Jack. They embrace. Guess there won't be any more family trips to Waffle House.
Hey, don't say that. I'll still go with you.
It's okay. To tell you the truth, I fucking hate Waffle House. But it was her favorite.
We'll find someplace new.
They look at her in silence for a moment.
I'm glad you were able to make it to the funeral. Who's watching the Black Lagoon while you're here?
Long story. But I have a few days off. Maybe I could stay with you tonight?
I'd love that. Come on, we should get to the cemetery.
Wait. Hunter digs into their pockets and places 2 small green emeralds on Carol's eyelids. They also place a wooden ankh sideways across her lips. Then they close the coffin lid.
Why did you do that?
Protection. Cut to the cemetery, where the remaining Dark Legion members, minus Jenny, are gathered around the grave. Victor, Cassie, Gwen, Nick, Jack, and Hunter watch Carol's body get lowered into the ground as a priest leads the mourners in prayer. He speaks of heaven, but all those assembled know that that's not where Carol has gone. The rain falls, the water creating an impression of Jack's invisible face, his mouth worked down in a sorrowful grimace. It's impossible to tell if there are tears joining in with the raindrops. Back at Jack's house, Jack cracks open the freezer to reveal stacks and stacks of Invisible Chef frozen meals.
Okay, I got chicken Alfredo, turkey meatballs, margarita mini pizza.
Hunter makes a face. No offense, but can we order a pizza or something?
What? You don't like the Invisible Chef?
No, it's just all I ever eat is reheated food. I can't get delivery in all the bogs and forests I'm staying in. I'd prefer something fresh.
All right. But they really do taste fresh, with half the calories of the competing brands.
Jack.
Right, sorry.
I'm happy for you, though. Out of everyone, you seem to be the only person who's been able to turn all this attention into a normal, successful life. How does it feel?
Oh, great. Everything I ever wanted. No more toiling away in a lab for chump change. No more vampires torturing me. What more could a transparent old man like me ask for?
Yeah, you sound thrilled.
I'm going to order that pizza.
Jack steps out of the room, leaving Hunter to wander around the kitchen. On the fridge door, something is poking out from behind a photo of Jack and Carol, which is really just a photo of Carol with some negative space next to her. Hunter pulls the paper out. It's a flyer for Golden Age speed dating, open to anyone 45 and up. The date has been underlined in pencil, and it looks like Jack has written a small encouragement to himself underneath. Just go for it. Hunter looks sadly at this, then shoves it in their pocket as Jack re-enters.
30 minutes or less.
Thanks, Tio. Hey, how's your dating life going? Jack freezes.
You first.
Hunter smiles and shakes their head.
Come on, dating's for the young, like you. You should be out there having your first love, making out under bridges, and holding hands in the moonlight. It's too late for me.
It's not too late. Old people deserve love in the moonlight, too.
Nah, I had my shot. I wasn't very good at it. I was so bad at it, in fact, that my wife left me for a guy who owns an artisanal mayonnaise store. Can you imagine?
Hunter laughs and shakes their head.
He doesn't even make the mayonnaise. He just loves the stuff.
Yeah, but look at you now. You saved the world, you're famous, you're successful, and you know how to cook. My mom said that was always the real key to finding a partner.
It's worked for me in the past, but only for a little while. I was never able to make anything last. And I just don't know if I can expect anyone to love me if they can't even see me.
Hunter gives Jack a sympathetic look.
Oh, but that reminds me. Let me show you what I've been working on.
Jack leads Hunter into the basement, where he's used his newfound riches to build a state-of-the-art chemistry lab. A cure?
Yes. Well, I mean, no, not successfully, but I've discovered a lot of other cool stuff. Watch out. There might be some invisible apples rolling around here somewhere.
Sure enough, Hunter wobbles and pinwheels their arms. Jack leads them to a counter that appears to have nothing on it.
My first step was recreating the monocaine formula that turned me invisible in the first place. After some trial and error, I was able to create these.
He moves as if he's picking something up off the table and holding it next to his invisible head. We're going to have to use verbal descriptions here.
Invisible underwear! I was able to adapt the monocaine to work on inorganic material like fabric. It takes forever because I have to process every thread individually, and I'm not the best seamstress, but pretty soon I'll have an entire invisible wardrobe.
Oh, sick. But for now, it's just the underwear?
By the way, I did not add it to my thing, but someone did predict exactly this. In
Invisible
the Discord,
underwear?
that
Oh,
there
I
would
missed
be
that one.
invisible underwear.
There's invisible underwear.
I think because of Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, seemed like the best place to start. Now I don't have to go on missions naked anymore.
And I can stop complaining to Dark Legion HR. Jack pulls out a series of different colored vials.
So then it was all about finding a way to undo the invisibility effects. No luck so far, hence the invisible edible arrangement all over the floor, but I did stumble across these 4 variants.
He gestures to each of the 5 vials one by one.
The clear one is pure monocaine, permanent invisibility. Do not touch it. The variants, meanwhile, all appear to be temporary. The red one I call mondocaine. It stimulates cell growth and replication. Basically, any living thing it touches grows over 10 times its original size.
He injects a small amount into a grape, and sure enough, it swells to the size of a beach ball. Whoa! Kaiju juice! Kaijuice!
In theory. I've learned my lesson about testing this stuff on live subjects. Only fruits and veggies for me now. The blue one is minicane. It has the reverse effect.
He injects the grape again, and this time it shrinks until it's barely visible.
Orange is lidocaine.
Lidocaine is already a thing.
Spelled different. This one causes the cells to repel light, essentially making the object into a powerful mirror.
The tiny grape begins to glow like a tiny sun, reflecting all the light in the room.
And lastly, we have nonocaine. Causes the cells to absorb all light, like little black holes. Turns the object into a complete negative space.
The grape doesn't just turn black, it bends all the light around it inwards like a tiny black hole. Whoa, I bet that would be useful for sneaking around in the dark.
Not exactly.
There's a sizzling sound, and suddenly the black hole disappears with a pop, leaving a small trail of smoke where it was.
Light generates heat. Absorbing all that light means absorbing an insane amount of heat.
This stuff is incredible, Jack. I can't believe you did all this in your basement.
Yeah, well, I still haven't made the one thing I've actually been looking for.
You'll get there. You know, this kind of makes me want to become a scientist.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, who knows what my future will look like, but I don't know if I want to be tied to the lagoon forever. Maybe one day I could study up and help you find that cure.
Well, hell, kid, if you can get away from the fish man for more than a day or two, I'll teach you everything I know. I could use a lab assistant.
Hunter smiles at Jack as the doorbell rings. It's pizza time. The next morning, Jack puts Hunter in a cab. They embrace.
If you ever want to talk about her, just give me a call.
I will. Hunter leaves. Jack goes back inside and starts cleaning up the pizza boxes from the previous night. On the counter, he finds the speed dating flyer. Hunter has pinned a sticky note to it that reads, "The right person will be able to see you. Just go for it." Jack sighs and pins it back on the fridge. A few days later, Jack steps into a trendy Portland bar for the speed dating event. He's dressed in a suit that he's clearly outgrown a bit in his older age, and much more formal than the other bachelors in their polos and striped button-ups. Everyone, of course, is staring at him, since he appears to just be an empty, slightly wrinkled suit walking around. He notices in particular a gaggle of middle-aged women looking at him and whispering to themselves, and he moves to slick back his invisible hair. The speed dating begins. Jack straightens up in his seat and musters his courage as the first eager bachelorette sits down in front of him.
Hi, my name is Jack Griffin. I'm a food chemist, although I've recently moved into the restaurant space. I also love to play the piano. I don't have any kids, and I've been married once. But enough about me. I'd love to get to know you. Tell me about yourself.
The woman leans forward. Okay, I have to know, are vampires like really real? And are they sexy like in the movies? I've always kind of had a thing for them.
Well, I wouldn't consider them sexy per se. They kind of tortured me.
You've met one? Do you have their Instagram? Montage. Jack rockets through the speed dating candidates. Every time, he starts his pre-rehearsed spiel, but can't even make it all the way through before the women are asking him about the Dark Legion. Is hell really real? Are we all going there? What religion is the right one? How tall is Frankenstein? Is the mummy as dashing as he is on the news? Why is there a kid on the team? Jack tries his best to stay chipper and hopeful, but by the end, he's given up. He gestures to the bartender to keep his drink filled and slouches in his seat. The host announces the last matchup is starting. A woman sits across from Jack, but at first we don't see who she is, and neither does he. He's staring at his drink as the timer dings to signal the start of the date.
Yep, it's me, all right. The most invisiblest man. Which member of the Legion do you want to know about?
I'm not interested in the Legion, Jack. Jack finally looks up and then sits up straight, shocked by the beauty of the woman sitting across from him. And so are we, because we finally reveal that it's Countess Maria Zaleska, played by Janelle Monáe.
Ah.
Superfans will recognize this casting from our episode about Dracula's daughter with Dominic Griffin. And yes, the events of that episode are now fully canon. While it's not necessary to re-listen to that episode, I will clarify now that this film takes place after the events of our Dark Universe version of Dracula's daughter. I'm interested in you.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm Dr. Chef, the Invisible Jack. I'm in the chemistry space, although I've recently moved into food. I've never had a piano, and I've had kids once, but that's enough about my divorce. I'd love to know about yours. Tell me about yourself.
Maria laughs. You're much funnier than you were in the book. They didn't do you justice.
They didn't?
She extends her hand for a shake. I'm Maria. I've never been divorced, but I have owned a piano.
Well, I guess we have something in common.
I guess we do.
Are you sure you're old enough to be here? I don't think the millennial meetup is until tomorrow.
Maria smiles. I'm older than I look. They continue on, laughing and chatting. Their rapport is immediate and effortless. After the 5 minutes are up, they both express their disappointment at being cut off so soon. The host instructs everyone to fill out their cards with the partners they were most interested in seeing again. Jack goes to circle Maria's name, but his pen is dry.
Ah, shit. Do you have an extra pen?
I think so. Maria digs in her purse, and as she does, her compact pops out and lands in the center of the table, mirror up. In its reflection, Jack can see her. Or rather, he can see her dress and jewelry. The rest of her is invisible. Jack yells and pushes himself away from the table. The chair breaks and sends him tumbling to the floor. Jack? Jack, are you okay?
Stay away from me. I'm a member of the Dark Legion, and I don't want to have to hurt you.
Hurt me? Jack, what are you talking about?
You're a damn Dracula.
Maria's face falls into a stone scowl. Her voice is low and threatening. Don't you dare say his name to me. The host has come over to help Jack to his feet. Dr. Griffin? What is it? He points an invisible finger at Maria.
She's a vampire.
The bar erupts in chaos. Everyone is screaming and fleeing for the doors. The woman from earlier exclaims to her friend, "See, I knew they were sexy." It's just Maria and Jack left in the bar. Jack is backed up against the wall. Dr. Griffin, I need you to calm down. I just want to talk.
Yeah, right. I don't care how pretty you are. I know better than to trust a vampire.
I need your help, Jack. Jack picks up a stick of garlic bread from a nearby table and throws it at Maria. He misses. Not that kind of vampire.
Oh, yeah?
Jack grabs the leg of his broken chair and points the sharp end at Maria.
I bet all vampires hate a stake through the heart.
Maria rolls her eyes. I didn't want to do it this way. She lifts her hand, showing Jack the large ring on her finger. The gem embedded in it is otherworldly, a swirling mix of colors that at times reflects light, then refracts it, then absorbs. Jack is hypnotized by it. He drops the chair leg and floats towards Maria, his toes dangling an inch above the floor. Now, can we talk? Jack mumbles with a slack jaw.
There's nothing I want to talk to you about.
That's not true, Jack. Maria leans forward, whispering in Jack's ear. I know who killed Carol Lemley. Jack's eyes widen. Cut to Maria's extravagant hotel suite overlooking the city. She sips whiskey while Jack sits on the couch, an ice pack to his head. A black cat suddenly zooms through the room and jumps up on the couch. Jack flinches, but not fast enough. Mid-leap, the cat collides with Jack's invisible head and recoils in midair, claws out, scratching his cheeks.
Ah!
Lily, down! Throughout the rest of the scene, Lily will be perched on the couch next to Jack's head, batting at him, running her tail around his face, and overall just trying to figure out this strange obstacle. Can I get you some coffee?
Does that work for a vampire hypnosis hangover?
Not sure. Most of the people I hypnotize don't come out the other side.
I'll consider myself lucky then.
It's not luck, Jack. I meant it when I said I'm not here to hurt you. I've left that part of me behind.
Who are you?
She sets a mug of coffee in front of him and then reclines on the couch opposite him. My name is Countess Maria Zaleska. I was royalty once, a long time ago.
Before Dracula turned you.
Not in the traditional sense. I was never bitten, never consumed the blood of a vampire. Turning women isn't Dracula's preference. I was more like his pet, although the twisted bastard called me his daughter.
How'd you get your powers then?
Maria shows the ring again, and Jack flinches. This ring. It's a cursed object created by a powerful sorcerer. It bound me to Dracula and made me a vampire in all the ways that mattered. I hoped that when he died, I would be free of it, but that wasn't the case. Instead, the warlock that made it hunted me down, made me do terrible things, until finally I killed him. Now I wear it freely, at my own will. Both of these men manipulated me, tortured me, made me kill for their own sick pleasure. But after hundreds of years, I'm my own woman again, and I'll not be ruled by a man ever again. Jack is quiet, trying to decide if he can trust her. There's still some caution in his voice when he says,
You told me you knew who killed Carol.
Her name is Carmilla Karnstein. I guess you could say she's my aunt.
Dracula has a sister?
He had a brother as well until he killed him. Together they were the sires of the world's 3 vampire clans, all of them given their gifts straight from the master himself. Carmilla was the oldest, and now she's the only one left.
What the hell did she want from Carol?
That I don't know, but I know someone who might. I'd like you to come with me to visit her, and then together we can kill Carmilla.
But why me? I don't know if you finished Cassie's book, but I'm kind of the least powerful member of the Dark Legion left.
Carmilla's not taking her reign as the last vampire regent for granted. She'll have her guard up, and she'll know to be looking for me specifically. I need someone who can be discreet and sneak in unnoticed. Plus, I know this one is personal for you.
And what about you? What do you get from killing Carmilla?
Carmilla preys on young women in the same way Dracula does on young men. But while her method is less brutal, in a way it's worse. She makes her concubines worship her, strings them along, and pits them against each other for her attention. She has an army of girls at her disposal, lusting for her and willing to do anything for her slightest touch. And I was almost one of them. We see parts of Maria's story in flashback. She pursued me for a long time, courting me the way a man courted a woman in those days. She wasn't like Dracula, asking his way into the bedroom the first night and getting his taste. No, she lives for the game of it. And I fell for it. I fell hard. I was young, I barely understood myself, and before I could even come to terms with the fact that I wanted a woman's touch, I was head over heels in love. And some nights, even to this day, I believe that she was in love with me too. But this was in the midst of a particularly bad family brawl. They flare up every few hundred years, and I happened to get caught up in an all-out war between Carmilla and Dracula. He saw how much she wanted me and decided to steal me away purely out of spite. He came to me like a gentleman, warning me that I was not the only woman Carmilla was involved with. The news broke me. I wept in his arms, and he whisked me away to his castle to recover. On the first night, he snuck into my chamber and slipped the ring on my finger. After that, I was his. Tainted goods. When I next saw Carmilla, she looked at me like a glass of wine that had been spit in. We're back in the present. Jack's entire face is now coated in loose black fur from the cat. So yes, I suppose in a sense I'm after revenge, same as you. But I also want to stop her from continuing her abusive cycle, from drawing young girls into her orbit. I want this world rid of all vampires.
Well then, I guess that's two things we have in common.
Maria smiles. What do you say, Jack? Join me for a second date? Jack breathes in a clump of Lily's fur and immediately sneezes. The Kingdom of Morocco. Maria and Jack ride in the back of a cab through the pouring rain to a modern apartment building. As they pull up, they see the front door burst open, and the Moroccan royal family is thrown out onto the wet pavement. See the post-credits of Cat People for more on this. Editor's note. Jack looks at Maria.
Is this lady expecting us?
No. I didn't want to give her a chance to avoid me. Jack opens the door for Maria and holds an umbrella over her as they approach the entrance. Before they can ring the bell, the door swings open, revealing Victoire, played by Naomi Harris.
Maria, I'm so glad to see you in one piece. I was afraid you got dusted when they got Vladimir.
It's been a long road since then, but I'm free now, Victoire. Victoire smiles.
It's about damn time. Come on in.
They enter into the grand foyer of the building, Byzantine in its design despite the modern exterior. It's lit by a candle chandelier instead of electric bulbs. Lightning flashes outside and the thunder makes Jack jump.
And it's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Griffin. How do you know my name? You're quite literally one of the 5 most famous people on the planet right now. Everyone knows your name. Oh, right.
They gather in the parlor and a servant brings them tea.
So, I gather you're not just here to update me on your well-being, Countess. To what do I owe the pleasure?
We need some information about Carmilla.
Yes, she's quite popular these days. In her quest to make friends, it seems she's making twice as many enemies.
Friends? Friends with who?
With death, my dear. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe I'm one of those enemies you mentioned. Now, I don't care who the hell Carmilla is chumming up to. I want to know why she killed Carol.
Jack, please.
It's all right, Maria. It's all part of the same story anyhow. Now, I wasn't there for the death of your friend, but I've heard many reports. It caused quite a stir in the magic community, you know. You see, Carmilla didn't kill Mrs. Lemley. Her wife did. What? No, Jenny would never. Not intentionally. She was tricked, used by Carmilla for her magic. Carmilla wanted to resurrect a soul from hell, and the cost was your friend.
Which soul?
Almanet. What the hell is an almanet? I swear, Dr. Griffin, did you even read the book that was written about you? It was a long book.
Maria and Victoire both give him a look.
I read the parts I was in. Almanet, the princess of the dead, the once mortal bride of Set, the spurned queen of Egypt, the bringer of... Okay, yeah, the mummy lady. Right, I remember her. Yes, the mummy lady. Carmilla has stolen her soul from hell and intends to resurrect her completely.
Why? Carmilla is currently the last remaining vampire leader on Earth. What does she need a dead mummy for?
You don't get to be the vampire queen without thinking a few steps ahead. Carmilla has outlasted all of her rivals and now intends to outlast the Earth itself. Is she telling this story backwards, or am I just too jet-lagged to follow it? All right, fine. Here's the short version. Ever since the inception of this world, heaven and hell have been at war, and heaven has been losing. The war came to a head during the recent events in Egypt when a portal was opened between the realms, leading to a full-scale invasion of heaven by the forces from below. It's only a matter of time before hell makes their move on the mortal plane. Carmilla knows this and is seeking to make a deal with Set, his long-lost bride, in exchange for a seat at his table for her and her concubines. Look, lady, you're about the 100th person to tell me the sky is falling. And it doesn't matter how spooky your house is, I'm not buying it. That's what the Dark Legion is for. We've stopped it before, and we'll stop it again. Now all I need to know is where this Lady Dracula is hiding. Oh, she's not hiding. She's working. Right in plain sight.
Working on what?
Recovering Amanet's soul is only the first part of the resurrection, and some might say the easiest. Now she needs to figure out how to implant it back into her body, which requires a delicate blend of science and magic. She's got all of her ranks fortified in the same place, trying to solve the riddle as we speak. If you don't get to the where soon, I'm gonna need another shot of espresso.
Victoire looks Jack in the eyes.
Dracula's castle.
The cup of espresso drops out of Jack's hands and spills on the table.
Ugh.
Jack, what's wrong?
No way. I'm not going back there.
Why not?
I was tortured, tied up by Draculas and used for my blood. I still have nightmares about that place.
Maria turns her attention to Victoire. Why Dracula's castle?
Well, I imagine it's partly meant as an insult to his corpse, but more importantly, it's filled with souls.
What souls?
When a vampire line is eliminated, they don't go to hell. They can't, because technically they never died. Instead, their souls linger in the place, unable to pass from this world. You're telling me the castle is haunted by vampire ghosts? Well, not for long. I imagine she's been hard at work implanting these souls into test bodies, trying to perfect the method before using it on Armanet. If you want Carmilla, you're heading to Transylvania.
Zoom in on Jack as he processes this. Maria reaches over and grabs his hand. Jack, please. I need you with me on this.
Okay. I'll do it. For Carol. Speaking of your lost friend, would you like to talk to her?
Jack is dumbstruck.
What? You can do that? Of course I can, my boy. I am a medium. Through me, she speaks to you. Would you like to hear her voice one last time?
Jack is silent for a long while. He sniffs, and a drop of water materializes in thin air. A tear, followed by another, streaming silently down his face. Maria squeezes his hand.
No, but I want you to pass along a message.
Victoire nods.
Tell her I'm sorry. Sorry for lying to her. Being a bad friend. Tell her I'd do anything to go back and do it all over again. Because maybe if I hadn't gone along with Jenny's plan, none of this would have happened. Tell her I'm sorry I got her killed. Don't you want to know if she forgives you?
Jack barks out a humorless laugh.
No, because I know she will. She's too damn nice. And it doesn't matter because she doesn't owe me forgiveness. I owe her revenge.
Jack wipes the tears away and excuses himself from the table. When he's gone, Victoire raises an eyebrow at Maria.
The only thing more surprising than Countess Maria Zaleska showing up at my door is seeing her with a man in tow. I suppose when we first met, you did play on both sides of the fence.
A change comes over Maria's face. It darkens the same way it did when Jack first mentioned Dracula to her. Her lip curls. Please. Those days are as dead as the men who dared manipulate me since. Now it's my turn to use one of them.
Oh, come now, Maria. He seems like such a nice boy.
They always do. And they keep it up just long enough until you can't get away. There's not a man left on this earth I trust. Especially not one I can't see.
So what's your game, then? Are you working with Carmilla?
Never. Carmilla's as good as dead. And Dr. Griffin here is chummed to keep the sharks distracted while I move in for the kill.
And what then? Do you think killing the buffoon and Carmilla will bring you peace?
You said it yourself, Victoire. There is no peace left for any of us. The only thing left for me now is revenge. End of Act 1.
All right.
We didn't break
tight.
it all. We didn't break it all during Act 1.
No, I mean, we're just kind of rolling through it, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. First of all, welcome back to Dracula's Daughter.
Yes.
Now officially in the canon.
Is this, other than Adelaide, is this the first guest episode person we've brought into a main pitch?
I think so, yes. So this would be, we have always, at the end of our guest episodes, we will say whether or not we think it's going to be canon.
And we've made a lot of them canon.
We have made most of them canon, right?
Yeah.
But it's rare that we have that we take the opportunity to bring one of the characters in and really make the story of those characters important. And I don't know. It now seems like the time to do it as we are barreling to the conclusion of the Death's Door saga.
And Dracula's Daughter seemed tied to our lore pretty strongly, and was also I really love that episode. I think I think it's a fascinating episode.
If you haven't heard it or haven't heard it in a while, please jump back to listen to Dominic Griffin's pitch for Dracula's Daughter. It's a really fun one.
But I basically give all the summary. That's why I did spell out, like, I wanted to include a recap for people that hadn't heard that.
Well, that's good, right? I mean, even I haven't listened to that one in a while. So So I'm grateful to have the specifics there. And
and also all the stuff I added about Carmilla, I made up for this because obviously we didn't know Carmilla
for sure was going to be in there yet. So it is. I think that's a great way to leverage our mythology and also to keep it accessible, which is something that we always talk about doing. We don't want to get into the problem. I do think that people overstate how important it is to watch all of the MCU stuff in order to understand it.
Yeah.
I think that somebody could go into Quantumania without having seen Loki and not be a problem at all.
Yeah, they wouldn't like it, but neither would you if you've seen them.
And most people didn't like it, right? But I think it's important that even though we have the luxury of knowing that pretty much everybody who listens to each episode has listened to every previous episode, that does not always apply to the guest episodes. And folks, if you're not listening to all the guest episodes, you're really missing out.
Yeah.
Especially this last one, the previous episode, Avery Edison's Village of the Damned. If you're somebody who likes the really in-depth, fleshed out pitches, it's just like, it's sort of like an Act 1 pitch from one of us.
Yeah. One of the characters that she introduces, we don't have plans for her yet, but we definitely want to because we were just so
she's
enthralled by her. But yeah, as you can tell, this is more comedic. I mean, it's definitely got its serious moments, but it's Jack, and I had, we talked about, I did originally back in phase 2 think I was going to go darker with Jack for the sequel, but that was meant to be a phase 2 thing. It was going to be right in the wake of being tortured by vampires. He was going to really be fucked up from it. We were going to get kind of a drama. But then we decided not to make a standalone sequel. And you kind of got him back from that in a good way in Phantom of the Opera, where he kind of worked through it on his own, seeing Broadway musicals, and it was like a good way of dealing with it.
All you need in order to get past your trauma is one musical number from Joe Stando, and you're back on your feet.
It was handled really well, and so I didn't want to move backwards to that. And also, since that was maybe when we were thinking of doing a trilogy of Invisible Man, and then by the third one we could kind of bounce back. This is, at least in the Death's Door saga, our only Invisible Man sequel. And I really felt like I needed to make it a sequel to the first one. And so this is as much of a continuation of Jack's story so far as it is a sequel to that movie. And you can see we start in the casino, we have references to Mr. Cellophane and stuff. We kind of get some glimpses of that first movie. But then there's everything that's happened since. And we still have to deal with Carol's death. And that's definitely something very serious for Jack. But I didn't want to, also because we keep talking about how dark phase 3 is, and we've had some really dark shit. Native American Werewolf in Paris is really dark. Love Never Dies has some comedy, but of course there's the very dark ending. I think we deserve some levity, especially from Jack at this point.
And then it's like, you can definitely leverage the Invisible Man as a terrifying figure, but not usually as a protagonist, because the whole thing is not knowing where he is and what he's doing, right? So if you're going to do the movie around Jack and have it be about Jack, then it's definitely, I don't want to just say easier, because I'm not meaning to discount the amount of labor that goes into it. It's better, I think, for the shape of a story, if you're doing that, to have it be fun, because you either can have a super mysterious protagonist, which is also difficult in the way that we tell stories, right? We are not able to imply things in the background the way that you can, and say, again, 2020, Lee Whannell's Invisible Man is incredible because you never know when he's there and when he's not. He's not the central character, but he's basically ever present. And that movie fucking rules. Once again, if you haven't seen it, unless you have a weak constitution, check out. But yeah, I'm happy to have the comedic Jack stuff happening. Love getting to do the voice of the character as well. Thank you.
And that also, though, did put some pressure on me, because that first movie was funny. And that's like, people love it because there are some really funny set pieces in it. And, I felt a lot of pressure to like, fuck, I have to like write a comedy again. And so far it's been a lot of backstory. It's been a lot of setup, but hopefully some of the stuff I have coming up will feel like an expansion of the stuff that happened in the first Invisible Man. The last thing I want to do is make a sequel that's worse than the original, but no one does, but like, I definitely felt the pressure of like, how do I top the baby powder on the balls sequence, which is one of the iconic sequences from our entire universe.
Show, right? But it is also the circumstances of your telling this story are different. That was your introducing people to not just that character, but almost in a way of like, this is a comedy by Dalton DeShane. Like you don't even really, other than like obviously some dark camp horror stuff in your comics, you are not a comedy writer.
I am not.
Even though you're actually very good at it. That's one of the things that we had to kind of talk through in that episode is you keep saying, I'm not a comedy writer. It's like, yeah, you just wrote some good comedy though, Dalton. It's just not the thing so I have to imagine that was a confidence builder, right? There's also been plenty of funny stuff in scripts since, especially in Love Never Dies.
Yeah.
But so far what you've done here is we have characters we're already invested in, and we have darker dramatic stakes that we're dealing with. So it's already not going to be the same tone. It's not going to be the same comedic expectations. Now, I imagine that, we're about to do some sort of spy shit, some sort of heist type shit, which is what that we had in the previous one. And I will assume that there's going to be some hijinks and some physical comedy and some pratfalls. And if we don't, I like that we've created, we've kind of cock and ball blocked already. He's now wearing underwear all the time.
He is wearing invisible underwear.
So we're
now,
way
yes.
less likely to see his cock and balls.
Last movie we saw his cock and balls in Act 1.
Yes.
No cock and balls yet.
Okay. But yet,
Maybe
we
at all.
got to see. Maybe not at all. We'll see what happens. If I have one note, and it's the kind of thing where it seems like it's too early to give like notes.
Sure.
I understand that it's serving the idea of how we set the stakes for the film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would include that exchange between Maria and Victoire revealing more of Maria's intentions right away. But I know that like that's there to build tension, not to reduce it, right? So I feel like I have to see how that suspense gets built.
Yeah.
And if there's a point where it's giving me more to know that she's got ill intent towards Jack than it would be to get invested in her as a character in a sort of like less suspicious way.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that develops. I will say part of it was actually podcast format. I thought it would be a good cliffhanger to end Act 1 on. This sudden twist reveal. It felt like a good kind of punctuation point on Act 1. But I am curious how you think that develops during Act 2.
Right, because now what you've done by putting this at the end of Act 1, you've also created an expectation of a probable face turn eventually for Maria. We are now looking at her differently. We've imagined that we've now set up an internal conflict that she has a trust issue, specifically a trusting of men. And if we want to see her move in this story, then what the audience is going to want is for her to at least trust Jack. Mm-hmm. Can she get there? So I do like that we've set that expectation.
Yeah.
Now I got to see how it pays off.
Let's see. Act 2. The Mountains of Transylvania. Jack and Maria ride through the night in the back of a limousine. Jack takes gasping, uneven breaths. We see Maria's hand flip on its back on the seat between them, and the skin softly compresses as Jack squeezes it. She looks up at him with confusion and even some genuine concern.
I'm sorry. I should have asked before grabbing your hand like that.
No, it's okay. What's wrong, Jack?
This place, it traumatized me. I keep wondering if I've died and this mission is my hell.
Are you going to be able to do this? Jack takes a deep, shaky breath.
Yes, yeah. I'm a grown man. I can face my fears. For her. For you.
Maria's face softens a bit. She lifts Jack's hand and gives it a soft kiss, leaving a floating lipstick print.
Maybe some conversation will distract me.
Maria thinks for a moment. So, what's the deal with this invisible chef nonsense?
What do you mean?
I mean, why busy yourself with running a company when you can have all the riches you want at any time?
What, you mean like stealing? No way. I mean, I've done it, but only because I was forced to by crooked cops.
Really? You could just walk into a bank and take whatever you want, and you've never even considered it?
Nuh-uh.
Okay, well, what about the dating? Surely you've been using your powers to your advantage in that area.
You think I'm a peeping Tom?
Oh, come on. 3 billion men on this earth have been wishing they had your power since that book came out. It's in your nature.
Not mine. The only thing I want to find is a cure. I'm not getting anything out of this damn serum except the help I'm able to lend the Dark Legion.
You're serious, aren't you? You've never taken advantage of your powers?
No way, Jose.
Maria gives him another curious look. The limousine pulls to a stop. All right, this is as far as I can take you.
What? But we can't even see the castle from here.
Exactly. They're going to be monitoring anyone that approaches. There's a horse tied to a tree outside. Avoid the roads, go straight through the forest. Once you can see the castle, slow down to a trot. We want them to think it's just a wild horse wandering nearby. Jack has climbed out of the car.
I don't know much about horses.
I'll be in touch. Maria closes the door, and the limo reverses away. Jack climbs onto the horse, which of course is immediately spooked and sprints away into the woods as Jack yells. Sometime later, the horse emerges at the edge of the forest, and we get a good look at Castle Dracula standing stoic in the night. The windows are dark. There are no signs of life. Footprints in the mud tell us that Jack has dismounted. He walks towards the castle. Cut to the castle foyer interior. All is dark and quiet. Then we hear a whoa, and a tapestry next to the window is pulled taut, then rips free. There's a thud on the ground, and the tapestry falls to cover a human shape on the ground. Jack panics and throws the fabric off, but luckily, there's nobody around. The castle is empty. He whispers,
Are we sure Victoire knows what she's talking about? There's nobody here.
Cut to Maria in the limo a safe distance away. I'll remind listeners that in the first Invisible Man, we established a bone induction mic speaker hidden inside of Jack for invisible communication, just so everyone knows. We're not giving up yet. Keep looking. Jack wanders through the empty castle, his feet kicking up small clouds of dust. He comes across a large iron door and freezes. We zoom in slowly. This is the door of Jack's nightmares. Jack? Jack, did you find anything?
Yeah, I know where they are.
Where?
Where they always are. The dungeon.
Jack descends into the darkness. We start to hear signs of life. The whirring of machinery, crackling of energy, and guttural, inhuman screams. We follow Jack through the dim corridors until he comes to a granite balcony. He looks over the edge to see that the main dungeon chamber where they fought Dracula in House of Dracula has been converted into an enormous laboratory. Vampires, all of them women, dart back and forth with tablets, taking notes, checking levels, even casting some basic magic spells. The low screams are coming from their test subjects, but them we don't see. They're all situated in individual curtained-off enclaves monitored by the vampires. Jack descends the stairs to the laboratory level, and the camera follows his negative space as he makes his way unseen through the chaos. We stop in front of one of the curtained-off areas and zoom in as an invisible finger begins to pull back the fabric. But it closes again suddenly as a voice rings out through the chamber.
Status report, ladies!
The voice belongs to Laura, played by Catherine Newton. All eyes turn to her, and one of the vampires in a lab coat approaches nervously. Laura, you're early. Laura also looks a bit agitated.
The timetable has moved up, dramatically. You better have some good news for me.
Yes, actually. Combination 1312 appears to be a complete success. The hosts have accepted the souls and are beginning to achieve consciousness now. Laura looks relieved.
So I can take this to her? I can tell her it's ready?
Well, it will take weeks of testing to know for sure, but...
We don't have weeks.
As soon as the words are out of her mouth, a single word resonates through the chamber, even though it's spoken softly. Girls. The chamber goes silent. All eyes look up to the balcony where Jack just was. The vampires have looks of awe on their faces, soft smiles and wide eyes. Even Laura seems to melt at the sight of Carmilla, played by Carrie Ann Moss. You've accomplished such beautiful work here. I want you all to know how proud I am of you. Carmilla looks around at the assembled vamps. When she makes eye contact with each one, they gasp or grin. More than one of them sheds a tear. And please trust that everyone involved will be given individual rewards once we reach Dubai. A wave of breathless anticipation rolls through the crowd. Laura, may I speak to you privately?
Of course, Mother.
Laura heads up the stairs, and Jack follows. In the hall, Jack trails at a distance. Maria comes in on the mic. Jack, status report.
I found Carmilla. There's a bunch of Lady Draculas who are, really horny for her.
Where is she now?
I'm following her upstairs with a girl named Laura. Seems to be her sidekick, or daughter, or girlfriend.
Probably all three. Tell me when you find Carmilla's office, and I'll come join you. Jack follows the two women up a series of winding stone staircases to a room at the top of the highest tower. Jack rushes forward as they enter, but they close the door in his face. Luckily, there's a window, which Jack and the camera peer into.
I found Carmilla's office, but I'm locked out.
He fills Maria in on where it is. Meanwhile, inside the office, Laura sits like an attentive pupil, back straight and hands on her thighs, while Carmilla walks around her slowly, talking inaudibly. Laura gives brief, intermittent answers that look like yes, ma'am. As the conversation goes on, it starts to look more like a seduction. Carmilla runs her fingers softly across the back of Laura's neck, and she shudders. Carmilla leans in and whispers something in Laura's ear, and she nods eagerly. Carmilla then begins to run her hands slowly down Laura's chest, and Jack quickly turns away from the window.
Yep. I think I've seen enough.
I'll be right there. Why don't you head downstairs and see what else you can learn about their research?
Sounds good.
Peeping Tom.
I wasn't peeping.
Back in the limo, Maria smiles. It's involuntary, and it turns into a frown as she catches herself. From outside the car, we see the window roll down, and then a black cat leaps out of it and sprints toward the castle. Here, we'd probably get another sequence of Jack sneaking and spying, some more clever invisible shenanigans, hijinks, as you said. But, of course, I gotta skip past something. So, invisible hijinks. Eventually, he ends up in a stone cavern being used as a loading bay. A fleet of moving trucks are parked inside, empty. A series of round aluminum ducts crisscross around the ceiling, with exit pipes dropping vertically from them every few feet. 2 of the exit pipes are in use, pouring thick waterfalls of blood into metal drums for transport. The only people in the room are 3 lady vamps overseeing the filling. The camera reverses to look through Jack, up towards the ducts. A black cat leaps into view, running along the ductwork and hopping down silently till it reaches the ground. It darts behind some wooden boxes, and then Maria stands where it was, behind Jack. She makes her way quietly over to a valve wheel. She watches the floor closely, watching Jack's feet make barely noticeable tracks in the dust. She waits until he's right under one of the ducts and clenches the wheel, but seems to be having an internal debate. She whispers to herself, "Sorry, Jack," as she cranks the valve. Jack turns at the sound of her voice.
Maria, what are you...
Before he finishes, a torrent of blood unleashes from the duct above, soaking him and making him visible. By the time the vampires turn, Maria has transformed back into a cat and scurried out of the chamber. The vampires call for backup and chase the panicked Jack out into the hall. Intruder alarms blare as Cat Maria makes her way out of the dungeon into the quiet and empty foyer of the castle. She leaps up the stairs, following them to the highest tower. She transforms back to herself and approaches the window of Carmilla's office slowly and silently. Jack's voice comes in on her earpiece.
Maria, what the hell is going on?
Cut to Jack. He's sprinting through the hallways, an army of vampires now at his back. He ducks into the laboratory from earlier, tugging at the curtains, knocking the poles over in the paths of the vampires. We can see that the beds inside are now empty.
You betrayed me! Why?
Cut back to Maria. She seems to barely hear Jack.
I thought we had a connection!
She taps the earpiece and turns off his voice. She peeks into the window of Carmilla's office, but it's empty. Before she can react, her ring is slipped off her finger. Maria whips around to find Laura, holding the ring between her fingers, taunting Maria.
This is so pretty! Where did you get it?
Maria tries to snatch it, but Laura slips it into her pocket and wraps her hand around Maria's neck.
Baby girl. Unlike you, my powers don't require cheap jewelry.
She throws Maria across the room. Down in the dungeon, Jack is still fleeing from the horde. He desperately tries wiping the blood off as he runs, but he's still very visible. He passes through a chamber whose walls are lined with prison cells, the doors made of thick steel. He looks at the signs next to each as he passes. They list patient numbers followed by initials. From inside, he hears rumbles and muffled shouts. He skids to a stop at the control panel and finds the lever that unlocks the doors. He flips it just as the horde enters the other side of the room. He flips another lever, labeled lockdown mode, and steel shutters begin to lower over the entrance and exit of the room. Jack ducks under the exit just as the prison cell doors begin to swing open. Jack stands in the hall on the other side, catching his breath. From inside, we hear the sounds of a struggle. No, not a struggle. A massacre. The vampire women scream bloody murder, and then they stop.
Maria, did Victoire say what kind of bodies they were putting the Dracula souls into?
The steel shutter begins to open.
Maria, you there?
Cut to upstairs. Maria and Laura are gone. There's just a small pool of blood where Maria landed against the wall. In the dungeon, the shutter opens. Inside is a mess of blood. The lights flicker and swing, showing us the mutilated corpses of the vampire women. And standing in the entrance, all facing Jack, is a group of 10 fully grown gorillas. The one in front flashes a wide, toothy grin and speaks with the voice of Walton Goggins.
Well, hiya, Doc.
Long time no see.
Vampire Ape Goggins.
That's right.
That is the kind of batshit stuff that we rarely make time for or find a place for in our world.
But Invisible Man is the place to do it.
But this is where to do it. Oh man. Okay, so
we're halfway through Act 2. This is where I marked for the break, but we can talk about it before we go to break. If
yes. Okay. So just to clarify, with the exception of we don't know what's going on with Maria and Laura, the other nondescript vampire ladies, they've just been killed by gorillas.
Not everyone. But the ones that were chasing Jack
okay.
got trapped in the prison room and were slaughtered by the gorilla vampires that they have been experimenting on.
Okay.
There are presumably, and we will see, there are still other lady vampires in the castle. But now there are also 10 gorilla vampires.
Okay.
Led by Walton Goggins, a.k.a. Dudley Hall.
Right.
Who was a cop in the original Invisible Man.
Right. And then got killed, got turned into a vampire in that film, became one of the lieutenants of Dracula's army, and then gets killed by Jack.
Yes.
In House of Dracula.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I love how out of nowhere it is. Obviously, I think in the full film version of this, there has to be some background thing about missing gorillas from a zoo or something. You got to tee that up with something.
I'm going to sort of back tee it a little bit as we go. You're going to see. But I kind of thought the idea that like, oh, they're doing experiments. They're doing like experiments on these souls and trying to like, it makes sense to me that it would be monkeys, right? It's kind of like, animal testing, you know?
I mean, there's that. I kind of assumed it was going to be humans because to a vampire, like we're animals.
Sure.
Right. But how could you pass up the chance to have a giant talking vampire gorilla with the voice of Walton Goggins?
We have also had people, I am taking influence from the Universal film, The Monster and the Girl.
Okay.
Which was actually originally a Paramount film, but then got sold to Universal and is now included in Universal Horror Collections.
Okay, so that was eligible because somebody at some point wanted to do it as a guest pitch and told them they couldn't do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's included.
It was really early.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad they didn't now, but Shout Factory includes it on their Universal Horror Collection, and it's listed on Wikipedia as a Universal Monster film.
Oh, all right.
I'm counting it. It doesn't matter. People on the Discord have been wanting hyper-intelligent apes for a long time.
Yeah, that's funny. That it's been like a very specific desire that I had no personal intention to...
I think it might just be Miss Drake, but he brought it up so many times that I kind of thought, well, that would be funny. And... Invisible Man's Revenge is the place to do goofy shit like that.
Fans, we are listening.
We're
not always going to give you what you want, but every once in a while, when you least expect it.
The idea of gorilla vampire Goggins was just too good to not follow up
That's
on.
like a Venture Brothers bit, frankly. Like, that's just like, sometimes you put a hat on a hat and then you put an extra hat on it and it becomes funny again.
The thing is, I wanted Jack to face his biggest fears, but because it's Jack, it's always going to happen in kind of the goofiest way possible.
Right.
He's back at Castle Dracula, the place of his nightmares, where he was tortured for weeks on end for his blood. And now he's back and the person torturing him has come back, even though he killed him, in the body of a gorilla. It's a problem that could only happen to Jack.
Yes. No, I love it. And I like that I feel like the setup that we did, the fact that it did not take long between tipping our hand that Maria was going to set up Jack.
Yeah.
That turns around kind of fast, and I have to think about trying to imagine how it fits in the pace of a full film.
Ideally, this first half of Act 2 would be drawn out a lot longer.
Yeah.
There's so many more plot points to get to that I really did like this. I filled out my page count with them, but ideally we would play that tension a little longer.
Yeah, I think one of two things has to happen. Either there has to be one reveal, which is when we discover in action that she's gonna let Jack die.
Yeah.
Or we need to build up way more anticipation for it.
Yeah.
But I enjoy I also think that we get the idea of her mistrust and her sort of like assumption that he's going to be exploiting his power.
Yeah.
Now we are establishing Jack as just a very, very virtuous man. Now, would I steal things or, do any weird sex stuff if I were invisible? I would think not. Gotta tell you though, if I stumble into a lesbian vampire seduction in progress,
You're going to watch it?
Jack, you're a better man than me.
Dylan is canceled. Dylan is canceled for fictional peeping Tom behavior. No, like, I think though it is consistent with Jack's character. Like, and I feel like the arc that's kind of set up for him is like, he can't catch a break, but he is a genuinely good guy.
Yes.
And from the beginning, he has not wanted to be invisible. Like, he has wanted to cure himself immediately. And it's kind of like he immediately got the sort of like, oh, you got caught with a cigarette, now you have to smoke the whole pack, because he was like kidnapped by Dudley and made to do crimes.
Yes.
And he probably doesn't have a taste for it anymore. But also, I really just think this is a guy that just wants to sit at home and play piano and have a wife.
Yeah.
And like go to work and do his little science. Like, he doesn't, I genuinely don't think he has any desire for any,
no, he's
bad
just,
behavior.
He's just a nice fella.
Which is why I really wanted to pair him with Dracula's daughter, because he is the opposite of every man she has encountered.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought they would make a good pair, because she's assuming he's going to be just like everybody else, but Jack's not.
He's not really like anybody else.
He's one of the good ones.
So it's also, I like that it also works as a sequel to her story as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's that good cinematic universe shit that we try to do on the show, where every story is moving every character in it forward. And sometimes they stay on the same path. Sometimes they diverge. Yeah, I'm digging this a lot so far, Dalton.
Hell yeah. Well, we can't keep the people waiting for Gorilla Goggins too much longer, but we are going to go to a break. And you are going to hear a clip from our most recent bonus podcast, which came out last week, where we have started a couple new series, including me watching every Star Trek movie in order.
And me watching the Before trilogy at last.
Yes.
And I've been really enjoying that. We're going to throw to a clip from that episode, and then we'll be right back going directly into Act 3.
No, the second half of Act 2.
Going directly into the second half of Act 2.
Be right back. I feel like a lot of Star Trek stuff just kind of goes in one ear and out the other for me. But hopefully the more I experience, the more will stick.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Otherwise, it's going to be a long year for you, Dalton.
Yes, well, watching Star Trek The Motion Picture felt like a long year.
Perfect segue, Dalton.
Boy, is that movie slow.
The fan nickname for that film is Star Trek The Slow Motion Picture.
God, there's I'm not going to get to, but there's literally a segment about an hour in where they do go into slow motion.
Yes.
They're like going through a wormhole or whatever. And the whole movie up to that point has felt like slow motion. And then they're literally in slow motion. And I was so angry. I was like, no, this is the opposite of what this movie needs. We need to pick up the pace. Anyway, what this movie is about appreciating the work of our great miniature artists of the 1970s.
Yes, this is really a Doug Trumbull Appreciation Society highlight reel.
Continuing Act 2. Jack bolts, still drenched in blood. Dudley turns to the other apes. Y'all split up and tackle the vamps. Carmilla's line ends tonight. The doctor, however, is all mine. Gorilla Dudley gallops down the corridor, chasing Jack. No use running, Doc. We got us a score to settle. Gorilla chase scene. Dudley is still getting used to this new enlarged body, giving Jack the slight edge as Dudley crashes into walls and stumbles around corners. Jack clambers up the stairs to the ground level, Dudley charging after him, his body filling up the entire narrow spiral staircase. Jack crosses the spooky, unlit foyer to the kitchen and slams the door behind him. Dudley charges and knocks it off its hinges. The kitchen is nearly pitch black. Dudley pants and squints, looking for Jack. I know you're in here, Doc. I can smell the sweat and blood on you. A faucet turns on somewhere nearby. Cut to Jack frantically washing the blood off at the faucet. Dudley sniffs and snarls as his smell disappears. You can't hide, Jack. He overturns a counter and the dishware clatters loudly to the floor. He stalks through the kitchen, blindly swinging his long arms in the dark. You remember the last thing you said to me? You told me to burn in hell as you punched a hole through my heart with a crucifix. So which one of us is the cruel one? A noise from the other side of the kitchen. Dudley whips towards it and advances slowly. You really think you're better than me? You think you're a hero, Doc? You might want to take a look around at the company you keep. We're all monsters, Jack, and you're no exception. Across the room, hanging utensils clink together like wind chimes. Dudley makes his move and charges toward the sound. As he runs, an oil dispenser hovers in the air and pours a puddle of it on the floor. Dudley slips and slides across the floor, crashing into the wall and falling on his back. He looks up to see a cast iron pan swinging up into the air.
Welcome to Chez Dracula, Dudley, by the Invisible Chef.
The cast iron pan swings down hard and smashes Dudley in the face, knocking him out cold. The camera follows the once again completely invisible Jack out into the foyer, just as Carmilla comes racing down the grand staircase, trench coat on and a large leather bag in hand. She whisks past Jack and out into the night.
Maria, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know why you did what you did, but I've got eyes on Carmilla and I'm going after her. I don't know whose side you're on, but if you really want to kill Carmilla, then we're still teammates. Catch up if you can.
On this last line, we cut to Maria. She's tied to a chair in a stone interrogation chamber. Laura plucks the earpiece from her and examines it while Jack's tinny voice continues.
Well, good news. Looks like your boyfriend survived. Or did you break up down there in the dungeon? Wouldn't be the first time you turned your back on your lover.
What are you talking about? I was cursed by Dracula.
Oh, I know. I've been hearing about it for centuries. Do you know what it's like to lie with the person you love most in the world and listen to them reminisce about the one who got away? Every time, like a stake through my heart. Over the years, I've grown to fear the very thought of you. But now that you're here, well, you're not a threat at all.
Maria struggles against her restraints. You're telling me you had all that time with her and she still couldn't stop thinking about me? I don't know when you last went out into the real world, but kids these days call that a skill issue. Laura's face contorts with rage.
So what? You finally got free and realized that you missed? You come sneaking back here with some elderly human sacrifice and expect her to drop everyone else for you? It's too late, Maria. She's over you. She's mine now.
I bet that's what every woman in this castle would say.
They're wrong.
And you're blind. I'm not here to bed Carmilla. I'm here to kill her and all the rest of you vampires with her.
I see. Well, too bad all that sneaking around got you nowhere. You should know by now not to trust Victoire.
She approaches Maria slowly.
Now, I'm in a bit of a hurry. Your naked friend released all of our test subjects, so things are getting hectic downstairs. But I've waited far too long to just kill you and be done with it.
Laura slides her hands up Maria's thighs.
I think we have time for a quickie, don't you?
Maria's breath catches. Get your hands off me.
Oh, what's the matter? Have you been stuck with Dracula so long you've forgotten what it's like to be with a woman?
Nobody, man or woman, lays a finger on me without my permission. Laura leans in close, her mouth grazing Maria's ear. She has one hand on the side of Maria's neck. The other is making its way under her dress.
Oh, honey, you forget. You're in my house. I don't need an invitation to come inside.
Maria darts her head forward and bites Laura on the neck, hard enough to draw blood. Laura jumps back, enraged. You may have my ring, but I still have my teeth.
Fine! I was trying to make your last moments a little more enjoyable, but if that's the game you want to play, I'm happy to return the favor.
She opens her mouth and her incisors begin to extend, turning into 2-inch-long razor-sharp needles. She lowers her mouth towards Maria's neck. And at the very last second, a wooden chair flies across the room and hits her in the shoulder, knocking her away from Maria. They both look around, flabbergasted, and then the chair rises again and hits Laura under the chin. Her jaw snaps shut, and her elongated canines tear holes through her lower lip and shred her gums. The chair swings around again and smacks her in the temple, knocking her out cold. Jack? The knots around Maria's wrists begin to untie themselves. Jack, I thought you went after Carmilla.
Well, I was going to, but then I heard little Miss Bossy Pants here on the radio and thought you might be in trouble.
Maria stands up and looks around, trying to find Jack's face. She reaches out and finds it with her hand, cups it, and looks at him. Why would you come back for me? I threw you to the wolves.
Couldn't just leave you behind to get tortured by Draculas. Besides, I don't know why you did what you did, but I know there's some kind of connection between us. Even if you've been faking part of it, you can't be faking all of it.
Maria looks at Jack with confusion, and then suddenly grabs him with both hands and pulls him in for a kiss.
Whoa!
Come on, we have to go. She takes her ring back from Laura, puts it on, and also grabs a broken chair leg from the floor to use as a stake. They flee down into the foyer and Maria heads for the door.
Wait, we can't leave a whole horde of evil gorillas running wild.
But Carmilla!
I know where she's going. We can catch up with her. Do you still have that DOP kit I gave you?
Maria pulls out a small leather satchel.
Keep it handy.
The dungeon is a war zone of apes versus lady vampires, most of whom have transformed into snarling black panthers. Dismembered limbs are everywhere. A panther head flies towards Maria and she ducks, and when it hits the floor and rolls toward their feet, it transforms back to human. Another vampire stands over the corpse of a gorilla, feasting on its blood. You sure you want to get involved?
There should only be a few gorillas left. Come on!
They dive into the fray. We're able to follow Jack because of a few floating blood flecks he's taken on from all the carnage. He makes a beeline for a gorilla who is currently holding a panther by the back paws and smashing her into a support column.
Dot me up!
What color?
Blue!
She hands him a blue syringe from the satchel and he jumps on the gorilla's back, jamming the syringe into his neck. The ape whips around, throwing Jack off of his back. The gorilla whips the panther over his head, ready to pound her onto Jack, but before he can, he begins to shrink. He roars and the sound gets higher and higher until he's 6 inches tall. The bruised and battered panther he was holding transforms back to human, picks him up, and bites into him like a candy bar. Just as she turns her attention to Jack, Maria shoves her stake into the vamp's heart from behind and she crumbles to dust. I got an idea for how to deal with all these vampires.
Yeah?
Maria nods at something over Jack's shoulder.
Now we're talking.
They run again through the chaos to a set of stairs that seems to end with a hatch in the ceiling. Maria takes her ring off, then climbs the stairs and throws open the hatch, which it turns out is a cellar door leading to the outside world. The morning sun pours down into the chamber, creating a square spotlight on the floor that nobody really even pays attention to. Jack, however, runs into the spotlight and waves one of the syringes above his head, yelling at a nearby gorilla.
Hey, monkey man! Over here!
The gorilla takes notice. He rips the head off the vampire in his hands, drops the pieces to the floor, and walks slowly over to Jack, curious about this little invisible guy. They both stand in the sunlight, the gorilla towering over Jack. I thought Dudley killed you, little man.
He wanted me to give you this first.
Jack jabs the gorilla with the needle and then backs away quickly. The gorilla looks down at himself, not sure what's happening. Little rays of light suddenly begin to reflect off of him in individual spots, like a disco ball. They multiply in number, and eventually some of them start hitting vampires, burning tiny holes straight through them. The women cry out, and the panthers roar, but the rays are multiplying faster. Then, with a flash, the ape's entire body turns into a glowing sun, reflecting the light all throughout the chamber. The vampires scream as they're incinerated to ash. Jack shields his eyes and makes another run at the gorilla, this time jabbing him with a different syringe. The light stops reflecting, and for a moment the gorilla looks normal. What the hell are you doing to me, you little runt? The gorilla lashes out at Jack as his body begins to grow darker. Within moments, he's not visible anymore. He's just a black hole in the middle of the room. Literally, as we can see the light bending around him as it's sucked into his cells. Hey, it burns! It burns! There's the sound of a fire igniting, but no light. Whatever is happening is obscured by this black hole of nothingness, now flailing around the room and screaming. Eventually, it drops to the floor, and when the effect of the serum wears off, it's nothing more than a charred ape skeleton. Maria and Jack look down at it with disgust.
Okay, now we can go. Let's take a beat.
Okay.
Oh, fun action sequence there. I know that we had to have, you set up all those different chemicals.
Yes.
And like a walk through Q branch before the big adventure in a Bond movie, we know that there's going to be an opportunity to use each of those.
Yeah.
So let's go down the checklist. We used the one that reflects light, the disco ball.
Yep.
Against vampires, naturally, great idea. We turned a gorilla into a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
We used the embiggening and the shrinking serums. There's a fifth one, isn't there?
The fifth one was just the invisibility serum.
Okay.
The original monocaine.
Okay, so you did use all of them at once in a very cool sequence. I'm hoping the expectation that's set for me now is that the monocaine, the original one, either that and or a cure is going to be used by the end of the movie.
Okay.
That's kind of what's been set up for me here.
Okay. I thought it was fun, though, the incinerating all the vampires by turning a gorilla into a human.
Oh,
into a
listen,
gorilla
of
son.
course. Yeah.
I was proud
this
of
sequence was super fun. I think, first of all, It's something I'm pretty certain I've never seen before. You talk about how whenever you're writing a song, you want all of your lyrics to be something you don't think has ever been a song lyric before. And I think that when you're trying to do a fun action sequence, you want to try and create something, at least one element of it, that you don't think you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen any of this before.
Good.
And that's really cool. I think that you have... I've seen ape fights. They're all the rage right now.
Yeah, ape fight. We talked about this on the bonus pod. Apes are huge this summer. It's Simian Summer.
Yes, it is. The Simian Summer, and we love it. But I really like... I didn't remember to talk about it during our break after Act 1, that you have gone back and examined the original, like, sort of sci-fi plot device of the first one.
Yeah.
And you've extrapolated that in a prismatic way.
Yes.
That's really cool, where all these different serums are all just like, what is the Invisible Man? He's a trick of the light. What are other tricks that are sort of like, and I want to say in a complimentary way, it's sort of like the Jeff Johns, like, Green Lantern spectrum thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, we've established that there's one of these and it's for color. And then at some point, someone was like, there should be a yellow one.
Yeah.
All right, well, why would we stop there? What's the other things that we would do with that?
Yeah.
This is like that. And that it's, if you can do this one thing, then it's sort of just tweaking the formula a little bit. Like, what's the goal?
Yeah.
What are we doing with cells and light? Now, like the shrinking and I don't know if you, other than it's fun in the device, I don't know that you need the shrinking and embiggening ones.
Yeah.
Those feel extra, and they are things I've seen before, right? In a world that has Ant-Man. The other ones all seem like, I'm always stoked whenever there's like a black hole grenade in something. But I don't think I've ever seen it in the kind of way where it's like, oh, you're turning somebody into a black hole by altering their cells and having them just absorb all light. That's really cool. And the disco ball thing is extremely dope.
That was the black hole thing was actually one of the things where I came up with the idea, and then like 2 days later, someone on the Discord was like, "Oh, we won't see someone invisible. We'll see someone that absorbs all light, and they catch on fire because." And I was like, "Shit! I didn't think anyone was going to come up with that. I thought that was a true original."
We got a clever bunch in our Discord.
We have a very clever bunch.
When you put together a lot of people who are all writers or aspiring writers, I think it's humbling to know in the internet era that there's more than one of just about everybody.
Yeah,
in one respect or another. All right, let's keep on rocking.
Yeah. They head back toward the exit, but when they open the door, they find themselves face to chest with Gorilla Dudley, looking mighty pissed off. "I ain't finished with you, Doc. Not by a damn sight." Maria and Jack back up as Dudley advances on them. "You got any of those magic serums left?"
Nothing useful.
They run. Dudley rampages after them, stomping on corpses and tossing aside anything in his path. If I have time before we tape, maybe I'll come up with more fun fight sequences for this. I mean, it's an invisible man versus a gorilla versus a vampire. How hard could it be? It writes itself, or at least I wish it did, because I have writer's block about it right now. That is written in the script. Imagine gorilla, vampire, invisible man. It's wacky. Anyway, eventually, their brawl moves into the loading bay we saw earlier. The blood drums have been loaded into the trucks, along with coffins and laboratory equipment. The remaining vampires are fleeing for them as the fleet begins to move out. One of these vampires is Laura. Maria catches sight of her and breaks from Jack, looking for vengeance. But before she can catch her, Laura hops onto the back of one of the departing trucks. She leans out of the back hatch and smiles at Maria, then blows her a kiss before disappearing into the shadows to avoid the sunlight outside. Gorilla Dudley grabs Maria by the shoulder and whips her around. "I see the doc got himself a little girlfriend." He grabs her by the neck and lifts her into the air. "She's a pretty little thing, Jack. Unfortunately, I think she might be too good for you."
"Let her go, Dudley."
"What do you say, baby girl? How about you let Daddy Dudley show you what a real man is like?" Maria's face contorts with hate. "I say." She raises her hand and points her ring at Dudley's face. "Kill yourself." Dudley's eyes go wide. He drops Maria to the ground and turns away from her. He begins to walk like a zombie towards an open blood drum across the room. At the same time, the final truck begins to pull out of the loading bay.
"Maria, come on, our ride's leaving."
Maria is still holding her ring out and staring daggers at Dudley. Dudley reaches the blood barrel and dunks his head into it. We switch to a camera view from inside the barrel, looking at his gorilla face drowning in the blood, his pupils wide, hypnotized. Jack pulls Maria's arm.
"We have to go!"
Maria reluctantly turns and chases the truck with Jack. They hop into the back and watch Dudley drowning himself as they pull away. Cut back to the view of Dudley in the blood. As Maria gets further away, his pupils retract to normal size, and just as he's beginning to fade away, he panics and pulls himself out of the barrel. He lies on his back in the empty loading bay, coughing up torrents of blood. He gets to his knees and looks at the truck retreating in the distance with rage. Cut to the truck. Jack and Maria are alone in the back, along with a bunch of enormous wooden crates lined with straw. The test subject numbers adorn each one. They appear to be the original crates used to bring the gorilla bodies to the castle. Jack is flooded with adrenaline.
What the hell? Regular vampires? And vampires in monkey bodies? What kind of freak is this Carmilla lady?
He looks at the shipping manifesto on one of the crates.
I mean, Skull Island? Where do you even find a place called Skull Island? Do vampires have access to scarier islands than the rest of us?
Meanwhile, Maria is looking through documents in a file cabinet.
Skull Island.
Where did you say the vampires were headed?
Dubai, I think. But I have no idea what a bunch of vampires would be doing in Dubai.
Maria flashes a manila envelope. I do. She slips her ring off and opens the back hatch. I think we're far enough from the castle. Let's go.
Go where? What's the plan?
We're gonna beat those bitches to the desert. Cut to some time later, in a hotel room. Jack lies on the bed, in clothes for once, watching TV. We hear the shower running.
Aha! Good news! Even Dubai hotels play diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Maria emerges from the bathroom, drying her hair and wearing nothing but a silk nightie.
How do you feel about Guy Fieri?
Jack goes quiet at the sight of Maria. She notices and gives a small smile. We need a plan for tomorrow night.
A plan. Right, a plan. So what is it they want again?
Maria grabs the manila envelope from the bedside table. You didn't read this?
Well, Triple D was on.
Maria rolls her eyes. Ever since the London Prodigium HQ was raided last month, the government's been splitting up its assets to secure sites around the globe. And according to this intelligence from Carmilla's team, there's a top-secret shipment arriving in Dubai at midnight tomorrow.
Meaning?
Aminette. I believe Carmilla plans on stealing Aminette's body and coffin from the Prodigium caravan.
Another chance to take out Carmilla.
And her concubine, Laura. Maria tenses while saying her name, and her eyes stare into the distance.
Hey, you okay?
I'll be okay when I'm the only vampire left on this doomed planet.
I'm sorry for what she did to you.
You came back for me. I left you for dead, but you came back to save me. I owe you everything.
You don't owe me jack. We're partners. That's what partners do.
It's not a dynamic I'm familiar with.
I know. That's why I thought I'd show you how. Now, next time, you'll know not to do things like dump 100 gallons of blood on the guy who's trying to help you.
Maria laughs.
I just wish I could be more useful in situations like this. I know my power isn't exactly helpful in a fight. That's why the Dark Legion had to save me from vampires in the first place. Wish I was more dangerous.
Oh, Jack. Maria places a hand on Jack's chest. I don't like you because you're dangerous. I like you because you're safe. She leans in and kisses him, more passionately than before. He kisses back, then pulls away.
Now, hang on. I don't want you to do this if you feel like you owe it to me.
No, I want to. She pushes him back on the bed and unbuttons his shirt. He slips it off.
But aren't I too old for you?
Oh, honey, you're practically a child to me.
Okay, but that's not good either.
Stop talking. She pins him to the bed and kisses him hard. While they kiss, she slides her hand down under the waistline of his pants. They both begin to breathe hard, their hips grinding into each other. Without separating their lips, Jack reaches down with invisible arms to pull down his pants. Maria raises herself up straight, holding something invisible just underneath the opening of her nightie. Just before she sits down onto it, the camera begins to turn away from them, rotating until it faces the large wall mirror next to the bed. In the mirror, all we can see is Maria's nightie, floating in midair, grinding back and forth as both of their moans grow louder. They pant each other's names, and the nightie begins moving back and forth faster and faster until it stiffens and shudders, and a scream escapes from Maria's invisible lips. Fade to black. End of Act 2.
For the record, I believe this is your first no cannibalism sex scene.
Yes, this is my first sex scene in the Dark Universe. We challenged me to do it.
Yes, as soon as you establish that he's wearing clothes on that bed, I know they're coming off.
Jack never wears clothes for long.
Yes, and just to be clear, did she become invisible from fucking him?
No, she's a vampire. She can't be seen in the mirror.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I'm like, that's a weird detail to throw in there.
We turn to face the mirror.
Okay.
In which vampires
We're just watching
are invisible.
the nighty. Right.
So
okay.
we can only see the nighty.
That's embarrassing. You can cut that. I feel stupid.
No, it's just in case people didn't get it. Yeah,
well,
this was
her
my
vampire
clever
rules
way
are
of
also,
dealing with
we
the sex
established
scene,
earlier. But yeah, that's great. I also like it has a very sort of, I guess, like kind of like Naked Gun kind of humor to it, where we have to avert our eyes from a thing we can't see anyway.
I was very tempted to make it like almost like the Team America where like they're doing all kinds of different positions,
but you can't see it.
You can only see the nighty to tell you like what kind of position they're in.
No, I think it's great. I like the way you were able to, but like they do, like there's a way that makes it similar to the Team America thing, is that it's able to be more explicit than your usual R-rated sex scene because of the nature of what it is you're not seeing.
Yes.
Anyway, and I don't know. I definitely think that it. I definitely think that it works. I think that the dynamic of the relationship works. I once again think that you could cut. I'm now firmer on the idea that you could cut the dialogue between her and Victoire about her intentions.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that her trust issues and her intentions in there, I think that all becomes very clear over the course of the second act.
Okay.
I don't think you need it.
I would, if I could do anything in another draft, it would be to extend that arc, because for me, it does feel kind of fast going from, I have been manipulated and tortured by men for hundreds of years. Oh, wait, this guy's kind of nice. Oh, he saved me. Okay, I'm ready to fuck. Like, it feels a little fast.
I think if you get rid of that scene with Victoire, if you don't underline it so much as being her main thing and the thing that her story's about,
it doesn't feel like we have to go as far.
Right. It lets me feel like this is not the thing about her, it's a thing about her.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets to be sort of the path of her story throughout Act 2.
Yeah. I do also want to address, for all of our gay fans, I know I am sort of straightening Maria, because in the Dracula's Daughter episode, we talk a lot about Maria being a canonical lesbian. And because Dracula's Daughter has explicit lesbian overtones to the original movie, I have made her bisexual in this one. And I am hoping that because it's Jack, we love Jack, everyone wants Jack to be happy, and Jack is a good dude, that this doesn't feel like I am diminishing Maria's queerness. Also, because this is in a trilogy that is extremely gay, and there has been a lot of gay stuff in here. I'm hoping this straight sex is okay.
The cover that you get is because there's so much other gay characters.
Yes.
I don't super love the implication you just did there, where women who are not attracted to men are not attracted to men because men are bad. And that
some of them are.
Well, yes, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not as if they just haven't met the right guy.
Sure. Yes, I don't want to imply that.
That's where I think, again, as an audience member, you're less likely to find it objectionable because Jack is indeed a small bean.
Yes.
But just to clarify my understanding of how sexuality works,
she is legitimately bisexual.
Yes.
She has a tough time trusting men because of her history. But in this movie, she also is given a reason not to trust all women either, because the female vampires are predators. And again, of course,
it's 21st century, and we're like examining sexuality as a spectrum. And people are allowed to adjust their own identifiers in this stuff. Labels are useful in terms of figuring out your shit. You're not married to them.
Yeah.
You are you.
That being said, I understand if people are upset with Maria having straight sex. I hope that the rest of this trilogy is gay enough to help offset it. But
Dalton, first you kill off the lesbian couple. Well, one half of the lesbian couple. And then you buy up, I would say, I will not say straight up the character, up one of our lesbian characters. What's happening to you, Dalton? What are you doing?
I give and I take. But yeah, I wanted Jack to get laid. And I think I wanted to finish his arc from the first one, which his arc is sort of like, he's always felt invisible, and he's felt that he's not attractive and people don't appreciate him, and he's a good person. And I wanted to show that matters. Like, him being a genuinely good person is important. And
yeah, we want to see so much of horror and even like action and adventure and stuff like this is seeing either bad things happen to bad people or bad things happen to good people. it's nice to have somebody just get a win sometimes.
Yes.
And also, I don't know that anyone's really going to be complaining about then having a scene of Janelle Monáe having sex with an invisible person. Pretty good. I would say people, by and large, if that's something that it seems like something she would do in one of her own videos.
And plus, I've given you plenty of ammo to go ship Maria and Laura and Maria and Carmilla and, all the other gay ships.
You've also got, not that it necessarily has to be sexual in any way, but since people like to read that stuff, personally, I think it's great when two straight guys are willing to express their love to each other.
Yes.
But if what you really needed out of this world, the Nick and Jack shippers, is those two guys to look each other in the eye, sort of, because one of their eyes is invisible, and say, I love you, they've done that now.
I gave you that too.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, yell at me on Discord. But for now, are we ready to move into Act 3?
Let's fucking go.
Act 3. Midnight, Dubai. An unmarked cargo helicopter touches down in a private airfield outside the city. A caravan of armored vehicles waits for them. A group of soldiers meets the helicopter and helps to unload its cargo. The last of this cargo is brought out on wheels. It's Amenet's sarcophagus, last seen in 2017's The Mummy.
Careful with that. It's filled with liquid mercury. If you spill even a drop of it, all of us are in serious trouble.
They carefully load the sarcophagus into an armored truck, and the caravan drives off into the city. And here, of course, we get one of those classic sequences of an armored caravan driving through the night, as seen in an uncountable number of action movies, including basically every Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible film. As they approach the downtown area, the car in the front spots a woman standing in the middle of the road. Hey, we got a bogey in the middle of the street. A soldier in a second truck responds on mic.
Keep going. She wants to be roadkill tonight. That's on her.
The first soldier shrugs and drives on, muttering to himself, Come on, lady, move. But she doesn't, because she's Carmilla. And as the caravan approaches her, she waves her hands, and the three vehicles at the front transform into thousands of rats. The drivers and passengers fly through the air with the momentum of the cars, then crash to the ground with the rats on top of them, chittering and biting and dispersing once they're nothing more than picked-apart corpses. The truck carrying Amenet's body swerves to avoid Carmilla. She lifts her arms, and the truck levitates a dozen feet in the air, its wheels spinning. She separates her hands like she's pulling taffy, and the truck immediately disassembles into all its component pieces. The soldiers fall to the ground. Carmilla catches the sarcophagus with magic and levitates it over to her side. Hell breaks loose. Prodigium agents are getting out of the remaining cars and opening fire. As soon as they do, dozens of panthers appear from all sides, tackling the agents. Off on a grassy knoll next to the road, Laura oversees this, a giddy grin on her face. But before she can join the fray, she's grabbed by someone unseen. Cut back to the battle. Through it all, Carmilla is calm, never moving from her spot in the road beside the sarcophagus. The Panthers make quick work of the agents. When they're all dead, 8 of the Panthers turn back into their human forms and approach Carmilla, each grabbing a hold of part of Amenet's sarcophagus. But as soon as they lift it, a voice rings out in the night. Carmilla! Countess Maria stands on a knoll looking down at Carmilla. She holds Laura to her chest, a stake to her heart. Carmilla smiles at her. Countess Zaleska, my love, it's been so long. Drop the mummy and go home, or I kill your plaything. Who? Her? Go ahead, she's nothing to me. Laura's eyes go wide and her jaw drops.
Baby, no, what are you?
Maria drives the stake into Laura's heart. She turns to dust. One of the nearby panthers turns to attack Maria, but Carmilla puts a hand out to stop her. I'm so glad to see you free from Dracula's influence. I hope you know I'm not angry. I know you had no choice. I don't give a fuck what you think. Points for the dramatic entrance. None of the girls these days understand romance the way you did. They beg for my attention, sure, but they don't put the effort in. I need to be wowed. I need to be wooed. And nobody has ever wowed me like you. This isn't gonna work, Carmilla. I'm over you. Nobody gets over me, darling. I'm happy to prove it. Carmilla smiles. I'd like to see you try.
Now, does Dalton have sexual tension with himself?
Yes, how's my lesbian chemistry with myself?
Tip top.
Maria winds up and throws her stake like a spear at Carmilla. She easily sidesteps it. That was your big plan? The camera pans around Carmilla to reveal that the stake is hovering in midair just behind her. It whips around to point at her heart as Jack pulls her against his chest.
Hiya, I'm the new guy. Maria, is this lady bothering you?
Carmilla rolls her eyes and turns into a bat, rematerializing a few feet away out of Jack's grasp. How many of you Dark Legion brats do I have to kill before you realize you're out of your league? She waves a hand and the Panthers charge at the floating stake. It drops to the ground, and when the Panthers pounce, they pass through thin air and crash into each other. Maria takes the opportunity to rush Carmilla, lifting her hand to show her the cursed ring. Tell them to stand down. Carmilla's eyes widen and her limbs go slack, but her mouth curls into a sneer. You can't hold me with this magic for long, imposter. But even as she says this, the Panthers lie down on the pavement. Jack, the stake!
On it!
Jack lifts the stake up from the ground, but before he can run at Carmilla, Maria is grabbed from behind by Gorilla Dudley. He wraps his gorilla arms around her so she can't lift her ring. Well, well, looks like I'm a bit late to this here party. I'm insulted y'all didn't wait for me. Do you have any idea how hard it is for a talking gorilla to hitch a ride from Transylvania to Dubai? Jack is torn between Carmilla on one side, who is slowly coming out of her trance, and the trapped Maria. Dudley digs through Maria's bag and finds the leather dop kit with the syringes in it. Well now, what do we have here?
Don't, Dudley!
You know, I've grown to like this new body, but if there's one thing it's missing, I think it's invisibility. Just imagine what I could do with just a little bit of your serum in my blood. Carmilla has returned to herself. Seems like you two have some history. Why don't we just pack our things and go? She gestures to the Panthers, who turn back to their human forms and grab the straps on Amenet's sarcophagus. Jack, you have to stop them. What'll it be, Dr. Griffin? Revenge? Or, she gestures at Maria, whatever this is. Jack still doesn't move. Carmilla winks at him and turns to leave with Amenet in tow. Dudley grabs one of the syringes and plunges it into his arm. Jack makes his decision. He turns his back on Carmilla and faces Dudley.
Let her go, Dudley.
I'm sorry, Jack. I'm gonna have to remand Miss Dracula here into my custody.
I don't think you have jurisdiction here.
A change begins to happen in Dudley's body. He spasms, but instead of turning invisible, he starts to grow. His already powerful gorilla body begins to get taller and taller. Dudley smiles. Well now, you're right about that, Doc. Matter of fact, they don't even have sheriffs here in Dubai. But you know what they do have? Dudley now towers over Jack, 6 stories tall, with Maria clenched in one huge fist. Kings.
You did it! You came up with another way to get King Kong in here.
I didn't want to correct you earlier, but we had not used the embiggening serum.
Oh, I thought I lost count.
We
All right.
tested it at the very beginning of the film.
Then that's perfect.
I thought you were about to spoil the surprise, and I was ready to be like, I'm going to cut this out because I don't want to spoil it for people.
Right.
But then you were like, we've used all of them. And I was like, sure we did.
I must have misread or misremembered something. Great.
He
perfect.
shrinks someone. He turns someone into a disco ball. He turns someone into a black hole. He did not embiggen anybody.
Right. And now we have created our own little King Kong here. We have a reference to Skull Island earlier, which I thought might just be a cute little, Easter egg.
Uh-huh.
But now we know that it's teeing up that Walton Goggins is our King Kong.
Yes. He is a sheriff who is turned into a vampire, who was then put in a gorilla body from Skull Island, who was then given a serum to become giant.
And he's holding holding a slender woman in his giant hand.
We have King Kong in the Dark Universe.
Well, I certainly, if I was going to ever do it, I certainly wouldn't have done it anything like this. All right, Dalton.
Look, who says I'm incapable of fan service? Dudley relishes in his new size. Now this is more like it. He steps on a crowd of fleeing passersby. Maria calls to Jack for help. Dudley remembers he's holding on to her and holds her up to his face. He begins to squeeze. Jack scrambles on the ground and finds the discarded syringe, still half full of red liquid.
It's fine. Just another untested formula entering your bloodstream. No idea how it'll react to your invisibility serum. What's the worst that could happen?
Maria cries out again, and Jack jabs himself with the liquid. He begins to grow. But of course, we don't see it. We just hear him. We see cars slide suddenly to the side as his expanding feet push them out of the way, their alarms blaring. We see a light pole bend as he staggers into it. He overcorrects and windows shatter in the office building to his other side. The camera continues to crane up until we're looking at a negative space as tall as Dudley. Jack has become the invisible kaiju. We zoom out to get our classic 1v1 arcade fighter shot of the two combatants standing tall over Dubai, Gorilla Dudley on the right, squaring off against, well, nothing on the left. We zoom in on each of their game faces, but of course we can't see Jack's. Kaiju fight. The two rampage through the streets of Dubai, Dudley swinging wildly, but able to roughly track Jack's movements because he keeps colliding with buildings. The whole time, Jack is apologizing to people on the ground.
Sorry, please get out of the way. I'm not used to being this big. And if anyone finds up a torn pair of invisible underwear, please give them back to me later.
Much how the comedy of the first Invisible Man was about slapstick where you couldn't see the person doing the pratfalls, this is all about kaiju destruction where you can't see the kaiju. Trucks smash themselves, a skyscraper topples over when Jack falls into it. A fleet of helicopters is called in, and they all explode in midair as they collide with Jack's back. A delivery truck emblazoned with the Invisible Chef logo tries to speed through the chaos, but Jack slips on it like a banana peel. He yells out as he topples onto his back, flattening a whole city block. King Kong Dudley stands over Jack and raises one big fist. But when he brings it down, Jack catches it with his hand. A hand which is starting to become visible. At first, all we can see is his circulatory system, but as Jack stands back up, the visibility spreads through his body. Maria shouts, "Jack? What's happening?"
I think the growth serum is interacting with the invisibility in my blood.
Jack staggers back away from Dudley as his flesh gradually becomes opaque, leaving us with a 60-foot-tall, completely nude John C. Reilly standing over Dubai.
Oh, crap.
Before the words are even fully out of his mouth, Dudley picks up a car and throws it directly at Jack's exposed junk. The wind goes out of him, and he grabs his balls and tips over into a sports stadium. He lies curled up on the field and mutters,
"Oh, my balls."
At this point, Prodigium reinforcements have arrived, along with local military. They fire heavy artillery at Dudley, and he shields his face against them. Jack gets shakily to his knees and shouts,
"Hey, wait! There's an innocent woman up there!"
The forces turn, see Giant Jack, and turn their artillery on him instead. He gets up and runs through their forces, chasing after Dudley.
"Hey, no, stop it! I'm a member of the Dark Legion, damn it!"
Dudley is bounding through the streets, avoiding the gunfire as much as he can. He looks up and realizes he's heading straight for...
Fucking knew it.
The Burj Khalifa. He grins. Y'all know what happens next.
Of course.
Gorilla Dudley begins to scale the Burj Khalifa with Maria clenched in one hand. Jack arrives at the base and looks up, dismayed.
Oh, jeez.
From behind, a Prodigium member fires a rocket that hits Jack square in the ass crack. He jumps.
Hey, watch it! I got a hemorrhoid there.
He jumps up onto the side of the Burj Khalifa, using the holes Dudley has made as handholds.
Let her go, Dudley!
Dudley responds by swiping his hand through the floor of a building, causing furniture, glass, and a person to rain down on Jack. Jack reaches out and just barely catches the falling man, placing him gently back into the building.
Don't worry, the Dark Legion is here.
The man yells, confused, "Who are you?"
What do you mean, who am I? I'm the Invisible Man.
Jack resumes his climb, and the man watches as his enormous penis passes by the window in front of him. Jack pursues Dudley to the very tip of the Burj Khalifa, where they're both attacked by a swarm of helicopters, spotlights trained on the two of them. Jack swipes at the arm holding Maria, and Dudley responds by trying to swat Jack off the side of the building. He grabs a passing helicopter and swings it into the side of Jack's face, drawing blood and knocking one of Jack's hands loose. Dudley grabs onto the sides of the skyscraper with his feet and wraps a hand around Jack's neck. "You're out of your league, Doc. Without your invisibility, you're just a weak old man. This is a world of gods and monsters now, and you ain't neither." Dudley gives Jack another push, and he loses his grip. He falls, and Maria screams after him. Jack scrambles for purchase on the side of the building and finally finds it 30 floors lower. He swings around so he's right underneath Dudley. Maria yells down, "Jack, catch me!" Jack looks up as Maria chomps her vampire teeth into Dudley's finger. "Ah, you bitch!" He lets her go, and Maria falls through the air in slow motion. At the last second, Jack catches her in his palm. She turns into a cat and clambers up his arm to his shoulder, then back to herself. She grabs onto a fistful of his hair and points up at Dudley. Bring me to him. Jack climbs up the building as Dudley continues to battle the helicopters. Not you again. How many times do I have to kill your ass?
Funny. We were just wondering the same thing.
Maria stands on Jack's shoulder and points her ring at Dudley. Let's try this again, shall we? Dudley goes still, his pupils expanding to fill his irises. Kill yourself. Dudley lets go of the building and begins to fall. As he does, his body shrinks. The serum has worn off. He hits the ground as a normal gorilla, his skull smashing open on the curb like a watermelon. He's dead. Jack and Maria climb down, and Jack also returns to his normal size as they reach the bottom. But for now, he's still visible. Jack looks down at his body, embarrassed.
Sorry you had to see me like this. I know this probably isn't what you were hoping for.
Maria lifts Jack's face up to look into her eyes. Jack, I saw what I needed to see in the castle. And what I saw was beautiful. She pulls him in and they kiss deeply. As they do, a hole appears in Jack's chest where his heart should be. Lines of invisibility begin to spread through him, following his veins and arteries, then spreading out through his bones and muscle and flesh. By the time they separate, he's completely invisible again.
I'm sorry I let Carmilla go.
It's okay. We'll find her. Together. There's the sound of approaching Prodigium forces. Maria transforms into a black cat, and her and Jack walk unnoticed through the crowd of confused agents. As they pass by the front lines, one of the agents has his pants yanked down to his ankles. He yelps and looks around for the offender, and we hear Jack chuckle as we fade to black. Credits.
Well, there, you've certainly done your famous Act 3 of Act 3 there, Dalton. Yeah, not a lot of notes. I mean, I struggled to think of anything that I would object to. It's like really...
Let's do our mid-credits scene before we get too far into it, and then we'll do our post-credits Dracula scene.
Roger that.
Mid-credits scene. We're looking at Amenet's sarcophagus. It's standing vertical against the wall of a dark stone laboratory. Carmilla stands looking at it, with one of her lesbian concubines nearby, holding a tablet. This is Emma, played by Jasmine Savoy Brown.
Ah, the other Scream twin.
Yes. Well, we killed one, had to bring the other one.
We have the soul, we have the body, and now we have the method of implanting the soul inside the body. But, Mother, how are we going to restore function to the body?
See, that's the easy part. Carmilla runs her fingers down Emma's neck. Emma closes her eyes and shudders at her touch. And now that you're my right-hand woman, I suppose I can tell you why. See, the technology for reviving a corpse's dormant biology has existed for centuries. The research has all been burned, but luckily for us, we have something better. All the secrets we need, contained inside of her. Carmilla pulls back a velvet curtain, revealing a sedated body strapped tightly to a steel slab. It's Elsa Falk, portrayed by Gwendolyn Christie. She still has Elizabeth Frankenstein's charred wedding band around her finger. The Bride of Frankenstein. To be continued in Van Helsing.
And you found an avenue for bringing back Elsa.
Yes, I did. I really don't want to leave any loose threads.
No, I'm glad. And like that actually was a helpful sort of note. You didn't spoil any of this for me when we were talking, and I was experiencing some writer's block with Beneath the Black Lagoon, which is lifted now. I'm actually further in that script than I've been in a while when I record, the previous episode.
That's great.
It's coming along very nicely. But the idea of let's start tying up some of these loose ends. If you get stuck with something, what's something in the toy box that you think is collecting dust and it needs a minute.
Yeah.
So, let's do the post credits.
Okay. Did you also reintroduce Elsa Falk in your post credits?
No.
That would be funny if we just kept stepping on. I just kept preempting all of your.
I had that worry,
twists.
but it did not happen.
Okay.
We can talk about it later. We're at Carol's wake. It's late, and a lot of the mourners have already gone home. If the mood had ever been lively, it's dead now. Nick, Jack, Victor, and Gwen sit at a table together, each nursing a drink. After a long silence, Gwen says, "You think it'd get easier, with all the practice we've had." Victor puts a hand on Gwen's shoulder.
I have lived long enough to know it never gets easier.
Nick raises his glass, trying to put on a brave face for the team and not doing a very good job.
Here's to everyone who should be here with us.
Jack sniffles and adds, "To Carol." They go around the table clockwise, each adding to the toast.
To Larry.
Gwen smiles up at Victor, tears in her eyes. To Jekyll. And finally, back to Nick.
To Evelyn.
They clink their glasses and finish their drinks. A voice cuts through the somber moment, unacknowledged by anyone.
Ah!
A fist hurtles toward the back of Nick's head, then phases right through it. The fist belongs to a dark-haired man whose face we don't yet see. The momentum of his punch carries him forward, and he stumbles through the space occupied by the Dark Legion's table. He falls to his knees and puts his head in his hands.
Please, I'm fucking begging you, please.
He turns back to look at the table, at us, and screams,
Somebody say my name!
We are now looking into the mad, bloodshot eyes of Sergeant Chris Vale, portrayed by Jake Johnson.
Yeah, we're really digging into the toy box, all right.
He collapses into a fetal position and sobs. A moment later, a shadow falls over him.
What is your name, child?
Vale recoils, startled by this acknowledgement. He looks up at the vampire Ahul, portrayed by Joe Taslim, who looks over him.
You can see me? Yes, my friend. You are not alone.
Ahul reaches a hand down to Vale, who grabs it eagerly, pulls himself up to his feet, and embraces Ahul with his entire body, burying his face in his neck and dripping tears onto his cape. Ahul tenderly pats Vale on the back, like a parent consoling his child. Vale lays his head on Ahul's shoulder, crying and laughing and smiling like a madman at the relief of being perceived. He has never been so happy. Then another shadow falls over Vale's face. Vale opens his eyes and screams with terror, pushing back off of Ahul and falling back onto the floor. He looks up as another man steps forward to stand beside Ahul. It's Dracula, portrayed by Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh God, no. It's you.
Have we met? I don't recognize you, but evidently you're not very memorable. Vale is breathless, but that's not the only reason he pauses. It takes a moment for him to remember it himself.
I'm Vale. I was in the Dark Legion.
Were you? Oh, yes. You're one of the men who was killed before the Legion even reached my castle. Dracula walks casually around the table, where the surviving Legionnaires continue to sit quietly, unaware of his presence. He indicates Victor. They appear to have gotten over it.
Fuck you, bloodsucker.
Ahul gestures for both of them to calm down.
There's no need to antagonize him. He is our best lead, after all. Your best lead to what?
Dracula once again approaches Vale. I'm looking for an old friend of yours, Aminette. Somehow, she's escaped from hell, and I mean to follow her out. My brother here picked up the scent of her magics, and it led us here to you. I assume you were once her thrall?
What's it to you? I don't know anything. I didn't even know she escaped, or that she was here to begin with.
Dracula turns to Ahul and sighs. I told you this was a waste of time. Ahul doesn't respond. He has wandered over to the table to study the faces of the depressed Legionnaires, who now sit sullen and quiet. Dracula turns back to Vale. I had hoped that perhaps the princess had an accomplice inside who aided her escape, or that she enlisted some past servants in her next design. Dracula looks back at the table of Vale's aloof friends, and at Ahul, and chuckles. I suppose she forgot you too. How deliciously cruel not to be remembered even by those for whom you gave your life. It's not a fate I ever feared for myself, but I confess, of all the nightmares we've visited, this may be the most grim.
It's not a nightmare. Does he not know? Darling, you're in hell. I know I'm in hell. But this is real. Don't ask me how I know, I just do. That's part of it. That's the worst part of it.
Vale crumbles once again onto the floor. Dracula laughs. Ahul clears his throat. He's standing behind Nick, looking at his phone over his shoulder.
Oh, dear brother.
Ahul beckons to Dracula to join him. Dracula rolls his eyes but walks over to him, more willing to accommodate Ahul's condescension and vice versa after months of traveling together. Ahul points to something on Nick's phone screen. It's an article about an artifact belonging to the estate of Richard Wagner that went missing during a recent disastrous opera festival in Vienna.
Perhaps this trip wasn't a waste after all.
Dracula purses his lips, then rushes to Vale and lifts him forcefully off his feet. When is this? Is this now?
I don't know. I think so. It repeats things sometimes, and then it jumps ahead. I go where Nick goes. What does it matter? We're fucking dead.
For the moment. You've been years without company, Mr. Vale. Dracula pulls Vale in close and sneers. I trust you'll accommodate a few house guests. Cut to black.
Okay, Chris Vale back in the action, kind of, in hell.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what's... You presented me with kind of a problem last time, which is that our stories are dovetailing together, right? The Dracula in Hell postscripts are traveling alongside more directly our regular scripts.
Yeah.
And we know that they have to, they're headed towards each other now. And so I wanted to come up with a way, because I know we have a couple more chapters we have to do before we get to the ending that we both know is coming.
Yes. The audience doesn't know it's coming.
The audience does not know it's coming, but we know it's coming. That I needed a way to get our characters closer to the action that's happening in your Carmilla Trilogy. Carmilla Trilogy. This is not about Carmilla Soprano or the wrestler Carmilla, without jumping too far ahead. So now they have the ability to observe what's happening in the story.
Yes, that'll be helpful,
and that will lead them, I would imagine, closer to their goal.
We'll see in the post credits for Beneath the Black Lagoon.
The big thing that I was worried about was that at this funeral and wake, there would be a mention of Chris Vale, but I was pretty confident that there wouldn't be because we never talk about him.
No, I don't think about him much.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so I was thinking about ways, what are things, what are some, who's in hell right now that we can use, we haven't used yet. And then what is something that conceivably Dracula and Ahul would be looking for right now? What would the trail of breadcrumbs be from where they last were? Like, okay, people who were in contact with Aminet and are dead.
Yeah.
That immediately brought me to Chris Vale, and then I had the opportunity to come up with a completely different hell for him, which is, I think, really fucking awful.
It is pretty brutal that they toasted to everybody that had died except him.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe in hell he's purposely not seeing
right.
them
and I've
talk
left
about
that
him,
open.
you know?
That was going to be also my out if there was something that they mentioned to Vale in the script. We know that there's we know that their relationship with time is not one-to-one because the post-credit scene from Cat People within the chronology of normal time takes place after. And this scene would have taken place before. Jack has not gone to see Victoire yet. So we know it's not exactly like he's just watching a live feed of the real world. Something is different.
Yeah.
But anyway, Vale being tortured very terribly with the idea of just being nothing to anybody in death.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a way to point out, I think it kind of sucks that we never acknowledged the first member of the Dark Legion to die in combat, murdered by one of our other guys who they're all friends with now.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
For him, that's just fucking awful. So,
to be continued. But Invisible Man's Revenge, I said, let's do a fun one.
Yeah, Dalton, I loved it. I think this is doing a sequel to The Invisible Man as, I think, squarely your most fun one, except for maybe Love Never Dies, by virtue of being a musical.
Sure.
Also great bits in that.
Sure.
This is really fun. You throw a lot of goofy stuff in here, and it works because the tone is consistent. The stakes are consistent. The character, Jack gets to be kind of a protagonist who is very pure but not boring, I think. And part of that is because he is, in fact, very damaged, but does not take it out on anybody unless they really deserve it.
Yeah.
That's something we've played with in the past, like when he is fighting... who is it that he's fighting with in The Mummy's Hand, and he runs them over with the truck over and over and over again? It's Claudia, right?
It's Claudia, yeah.
And he's just very cool about it.
Yeah.
That feels like that feels consistent here with the idea that he doesn't really wish anybody harm, but he certainly has it in him to fuck somebody up.
Yes.
If the situation calls for it. I like that we've introduced a new romance, and also that in doing so, we have brought the Countess into our cast.
Yeah.
When we next see Jack, it's now expected that we'll also see her.
Which is something I didn't plan for, but we'll figure out.
Well, now we get to advertise within our universe. We now get to advertise Janelle Monáe as, part of our big cast in Death's Door. So
I really wanted with this trilogy, people were really expecting this to be dark. I think they expected it to be the same tone as like the end of Love Never Dies. But I wanted all of these films to have a very distinct feel. I mean, Easy with Love Never Dies because it's a musical, but this one, a comedy. And I also, this is the chance to be the fun one. There's a lot of fan service in here, hopefully in ways that fans didn't expect. We got King Kong, but not in the way that anybody expected us to get King Kong. Someone also, the other thing that someone called the very day after I came up with it was Kaiju Jack. Someone had come up with Giant Jack.
And that was just a wild swing, right?
Yeah, someone just made a wild swing as a joke. And I had literally, the day before, I had this entire third act come to me in the shower, and I like texted people, my partners right away, and was like, oh my God, Kaiju Jack, he turns visible. Because that was I was like, how do I outdo the cock and balls bit? That was
right.
It was really driving me crazy.
You have to literally go bigger.
I have to literally outdo the powder on the balls bit. Okay, what if I made Jack 60 feet tall and fully visible, and he's just a naked old man rampaging through the city streets?
Yeah. And I like that also it gives like you did in the first one, although obviously in the beginning of that movie, he's not invisible yet. But you have at the sort of climax of that, he has a heroic moment and he becomes visible, and we have a little moment for him to have his death scene and be brought back to life. Here, we get to have sort of the culmination of his romantic subplot with the actor on screen.
Yes.
And then he returns to being invisible, but he's more comfortable about it now.
Yeah, and they get a moment together, being able to literally see each other.
Yeah.
I liked the way that all ended up dovetailing together.
Carmilla gets to do a fair amount of vampire shit here.
Yes.
The idea of having her sort of like her like dozens of thralls or whatever. It's got very much that creepy vampire eroticism. She has a particular kind of voice to her that's, I think it'll be fun once assuming we do, I don't even know if it'll actually be a thing that we have to happen, but if we ever have Dracula, Ahul, and Carmilla in a room together, I do think that there are three slightly different shades, but they still feel like family.
We could do someone do an AU fic about the three of them, like the young vampires, where they're just teenagers
going to Vampire Thanksgiving to hang out with the master.
Yeah, the master as a single dad, trying to raise them right. I wanted, this was a chance for Carmilla to become more of a character. And also, but the tough part with all of this is like, okay, if Carmilla's the big bad, I can't kill our main villain in this one. So I introduced Laura, Laura, by the way, is the narrator of the Carmilla novel.
Okay.
So that's where I got that from. But very different character. And Catherine Newton.
And good use of Catherine Newton, too. I could hear it in her voice very easily.
I think she'd be very fun in that role.
And I like that you've advanced the Aminet thing without having to pull the trigger on Aminet, which is also useful for me because, like, for my post-credits, I really didn't want you to already have Aminet.
Sure, yeah.
Even though I had that sort of outside of time thing, it's fun writing those and having to be like, okay, I got to do this in a way where it's very unlikely that something's going to happen. I have to have outs for if something happens in your movie I don't expect it won't kill my sequence, which is kind of fun challenge.
Part of making Aminet's return feel big, which I feel like it should because she's the OG Dark Universe
and she's been
villain.
gone for 20 movies.
She's been gone for 20 movies. I wanted to do it in pieces. First, we have to get her soul. Then we got to get the body. Then we got to get the soul into the body. Then we got to bring the body back to life. Like make it a big deal so that if and when she does return, it feels more earned and it's not just like, oh, cameo or whatever, Yeah,
that's great. And I think also when you do something like this, you want the excitement for that character's return to be earned even for people who don't give a shit about the mummy, which realistically is most people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
now, our audience represents probably the biggest proportion of people who care who Aminet is that have ever been assembled in any one place. We've got that going for us.
Prodigium is going to take out our Discord to kill all the Aminet lovers. But yeah, let's do our picture lock. Basically, Aminet's body and soul are now in control of Carmilla. She just has to put the soul into the body and then bring the body back to life.
To do that, she's going to need to find the secret in the body of Elsa Falk.
Elsa Falk, who, if people don't remember, is the sister of Cassie Falk, who is our partner of Frankenstein right now.
She's a giant woman who was killed and then was brought back accidentally.
Yes.
By being struck by lightning.
while wearing
the Victor
Frankenstein's wife's wedding
Yeah.
band. Yes. So kind of convoluted, but that's how we do things here. She is in Carmilla's clutches. Dracula's daughter has entered the lore. Countess Maria Zaleska, played by Janelle Monáe, is now Jack's maybe love interest. They seem quite kissing and fucking. They're kissing and fucking. And she is on the side of our Dark Legion. She wants Carmilla dead. And Jack is Jack. He's more confident. He's found someone who likes him for him. I think that's all the important stuff. And I do want to point out again the moment with Hunter, because it's easy to get lost, where they put the emeralds and the ankh on Carol's face before her burial, which maybe might be something we hear more about in next month with the Beneath the Black Lagoon.
Maybe.
But for now, let's lock this in.
It's alive! In the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God.
All right. Big announcement time.
Yes, let's talk about our next guest episode, Dylan.
In 2 weeks, we will have a pitch from our good friend, Patrick Willems.
That's right.
Patrick is going to pitch us on a Dark Universe remake of Jaws.
That's right. Jaws is maybe entering the Dark Universe, and Patrick Willems will be our first guest who has actually met Tom Cruise.
That's true.
Has met Nick Morton.
Our
and we
show
will hear
will
that story.
officially be 1 degree of separation from Nick Morton himself.
Well, it has been because Patrick Williams...
he's been the voice of our show, right?
He has been...
he's been a voice on our show. He was the original voice of Abraham Van Helsing.
That's right.
On House of Dracula. But yes, he had not yet met Tom Cruise when we recorded that.
True.
And now he has.
So we're going to hear all about Tom Cruise and that adventure, and Patrick is who is a filmmaker himself.
Yes, he's going to be actually calling in from Cannes.
Wow.
Is when we record this.
An official Cannes interview with Patrick Willems.
Yes.
About his pitch for Jaws. So please come back here in 2 weeks, because then 2 weeks after that, Beneath the Black Lagoon with Dylan. And then it's only one more movie until Dark Legion 3. We are ramping up. I hope you enjoyed The Invisible Man's Revenge. Sign up at patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton to hear our bonus podcast, do movie nights with us, and also he'll read some fanfic.
There's a lot more.
There's a lot of more.
If you're thinking we would love there was more stuff with our characters than we can produce at the rate that we make things, there's a whole bunch of non-canonical stuff.
I think they've written like at least 2 more holiday specials.
Yes, I think so. Like I pop into that channel the least because they've been going for so long that like I don't know what's going on. And once again, I do think that like that's a space for fans.
Yeah.
And if they want to show us something, they'll tell us. They can tag us.
Sure.
But yeah, that's your space, and it's all your space. You are paying rent there, so
Yes.
if you want to make that space your own and join the wonderful community that we have there, please go to patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton.
Free for 1 week and then $5 a month.
You're getting a lot for that $5.
And we have plans to add more in the future. And of course, you can get all the music from Love Never Dies and a bunch of other bonus stuff we've put up there over the time. But anyway, that's enough from us for now. Dylan has a show to go play.
That's right.
And I'm going to come watch his band No Jersey. Look them up on Spotify and Apple Music. And until next time,
Stay afraid of the dark universe.